Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure, 'cause
We have this one.
Okay.
Nah. I think we'll be okay.
Oh, yeah.
If we could just rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we can just do a moment of silence to remember the services and sacrifices of the armed service members who protect our nations and the first responders who protect our neighborhoods. Officer Matos, thank you very much for your service. Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn? Councilmember Quinn?
Yes, due to the late night last night, I am on the phone due to my health, so I am here.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Councilmember Freelander?
Here.
Councilmember Jedinak?
Here.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Sackett?
Here.
Councilmember Jackson? Vice President Abrahamson? President Kelly?
Here. This meeting was advertised in the Daily Record and the Star Ledger, the official newspapers for the Township of Rockaway, on March 8, 2019. Notice was posted on the official bulletin boards of Rockaway Township. 6 is the designation of Sergeant at Arms. Township Code 2-5.15 decorum. While the council is in session, the members shall preserve order and decorum. The council president at his or her discretion shall direct the chief of police or such other person in the police department as he may designate to be the sergeant of arms at the council meeting. The sergeant of arms shall employ reasonable means to maintain the proper order and decorum consistent with the accepted standards. I see in the back that we have Officer Hamilton and Officer Matos, and you two will be the sergeant of arms. Yes? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. 7, we have here discussion and possible action of the 2019 municipal budget. We have engineering, planning, and construction,
Page 30.
or we have police. I don't know if we have an order that we need to change because of somebody's calendar or schedule.
Chief, you need to go first? If you wouldn't mind, could we do construction first so I could get our construction?
Is anybody getting paid right now for being here?
Nope.
Yes or no?
Yes or no? Are you getting
Well,
paid?
I didn't punch in, but I don't have to be paid, no.
You're not being paid for that? Okay. No, he's salary. Thank you for forfeiting your time. We'll go with engineering.
Okay.
Page 30.
I don't know if anybody heard Mrs. Yeah, 30? Yeah. Mr. Quinn, Mr. Jeniak, can you guys hear okay?
Yes, I can.
If I could just...
I hear you just fine.
Great.
I heard page 30.
That's correct. I got page 30 as the tax assessment.
I have it as engineering.
Oh, you know what? Sorry. My fault. I wrote my other book too.
Everybody ready?
Mr. Christofferson, too, moving forward, our microphone and audio system, it's a little sensitive when we have people that are on the phone. So I apologize in advance to ask you to kind of talk a little bit louder in the microphone so they can hear you, because the phone speaker here for them to hear is close this way. So the audible that I get back and forth from you and I looking at each other is one thing, but they can't hear so well sometimes. So they're very reliant on the microphone to to understand what you're saying, and it makes things move a lot faster, so just in advance. And the same thing to Chief McFarland. Go ahead.
Okay, engineering salaries and wages. This year the salaries for the employees, the principal engineer, the township engineer went down, the principal engineer went down, the administrative clerk is staying the same, and I asked for a $1,500 increase in the overtime related to this department. Can you hear me all right? A little bit louder?
A little bit louder if you could.
Okay.
Can you guys hear well, Mr. Quinn, Mr. Jeniak?
I couldn't hear anything there
Oh.
for a minute. Now I can hear you. Yeah, I only heard you.
I'm sorry.
All right,
Mrs. Fronte, if you could just double up on that again.
All right. The salaries for the engineering budget, the township engineer went down this year, principal engineer went down this year, administrative clerk is with the 2% raise, and then I'm requesting a $1,500 increase in the overtime line item for this department.
Okay. Anybody have any quick questions on those two items on the sub-account of 11 and 14? Mrs. Smith?
No, I have to, wait. No, I don't have it.
Mrs. Fronte, on line 14, or I'm sorry, 0114, or 014,
Yeah.
on your overtime,
Yes.
who is eligible for overtime in your department?
That is the principal clerk as well as the principal engineer. Not-
And in years prior, did we have a principal clerk and a principal engineer?
We had a principal clerk and a principal engineer last year, and then the years prior was the senior public works inspector.
So what would be the, if in 2016 you had $676.47,
Yep.
in 2017 you had $729, we budgeted $1,000.
Wait, I lost you.
In 2016 on line 014,
Yep.
$676.47,
Mm-hmm.
small increase into 2017, $729.81.
Okay.
We budgeted $1,000.
Yep.
You used $827.
Yes.
Where's the additional monies that you're looking for?
We were looking for this monies to help in the transition. As everybody is aware, there's been a changeover in the department, not only with the head engineer, but also with my position. So we have some additional trainings to do. Often we have to stay late and do either trainings on a project, or if I need my inspector to stay late to finish out a project to make sure that the contractor is buttoning up the site. So I would like to have that in there for both the transition and to support with construction inspection services.
So you would be doing inspections after your hours of operation?
On the overtime, if it needs to be buttoned up, yeah.
So, I mean, most construction sites are over at 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Not with a lot of road projects who want to get in and get out.
Well, I'm sorry?
Not with a lot of road projects who, if they're coming to their end of their day, want to put in a structure or put in pipe and have to wait for either a load of pavement or a load of concrete. I don't want to leave that up to the contractor to finish out that job. I'd rather have Rockaway Township
Asphalt
personnel.
plants close at 4 o'clock.
And
Allison, don't some people work on Saturday? Like the mall asked us one time to stay on a Saturday if they can work?
Yeah.
And then we'd have to pay our inspector to come in on a Saturday?
that's also an option.
Who is the inspector that you're talking about, Mrs. Seeger?
The principal engineer?
But we never used that. I mean, is that something new of a process that didn't take place in 16 and 17 and 18? I mean, what you're telling me
No.
seems to be something that's been going on for
No.
years, the way you're making it sound.
No.
So what would be
that's,
the
what
difference in
we've been
2019 versus the
I
years
think,
prior?
no, I'm letting you know that those are inspections, also in that line item, but also with the transition in the department. Also, principal clerk and the inspector, like I said, would apply their time to that, so.
But we had similar scenarios in the years prior. you had inspections from those individuals. What would be the difference now in 2019 versus 18, 17, and 16?
Again, the inspections and then the transition in the department.
So it's more in the transition, Allison?
Right, it's in the transition, but we also have a lot of backlog with construction projects on the horizon, so I
So
want to make
like
sure.
this new principal engineer is learning how to do inspections now?
No,
So they knew how to do inspections before they came here?
yeah, but they haven't been in the current position that they're in right now, so there is a learning curve.
Okay.
And we're expecting the Lennar and all them to come on this year, which are bigger projects, along with the
Mrs.
June.
Seeger, could I have Mrs. Ferrante talk?
Sure,
Thank
I'm
you.
just helping her out.
You're making it more complicated, actually. Go ahead, Mrs. Ferrante. That's it?
That's it. That's it.
Okay. You have the other sub-accounts?
Yes, other expenses. So, we're requesting, last year was requested 140,000, and we're requesting, we requested 140,000 and recommended 139,650.
350 less?
Council President.
Go ahead, Mr. Sackett.
Line item 28. I know we budgeted 122.1 last year, and you only spent 59, and you're requesting a 122.1 again. I'm happy that you only spent the 59, which is great, but, to go back to the 122, is that much needed?
Yeah.
I'm good, thank you. Sure. Yeah, allergies.
Yeah.
Any particular reason why we're going for so much more? We're not going to be in that 59 range again.
Right. If you look down at the sum expended through in 2018, I want to say a large portion of that was an expenditure was due to the transition in my department.
Okay.
I mean, the head engineer who would write the vouchers, that position was vacant for about a month.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got in the position, I was, a little hesitant about spending money, so without being confident. So I would say that was not, captured as much as my predecessor would have liked to, spend on that line item. And I know that he had planned projects, and during the transition, they couldn't get executed, so.
Was one of those the dam?
The dam I believe we got in the dam permit from DEP during that transition, so. The
For
dam,
Hudsonia?
yeah, Hudsonia,
That was prior, though. That was some time ago.
summer, I think it was the summer.
Before
There's
his
multiple permits. There's
Before his
the
departure, though.
There's the dam safety permit and then the wetlands permit. So I believe the dam safety permit came in at the end of August, end of the summer. I could look back and get you the right date on that. But-
Councilman Jeniak, I still have Mr. Sackett questioning. You just give him a second.
Yeah, just with this, we have yourself, and then we have a principal engineer as well, and we're hiring someone to do the professional consulting. Wouldn't it be more beneficial to hire another principal engineer and maybe not have to spend all this money on consulting? It seems like sometimes I notice a lot in our budget, we're hiring these people when we already have a lot of people in the house to do the work. And maybe if we had staff to do it, because consulting, we're paying a lot for consulting. Maybe if we had our own people in house, it would actually be a little more beneficial for us.
Five days a week, 8
Yeah.
hours a day.
That's a great question, and that's a great option. You have to remember, it's not just a salary line item. You have to also pay the benefits to that line item. Also, there is a level of liability that is shared, that is taken with when you have a consultant do it. So, and also, based on the volume of work that's coming through that department, you would need not only one, I think possibly two, definitely 1.5. If we recall, there was 5 individuals in that department. There was the head engineer, the assistant engineer, there was, I don't know the title, surveyor, inspector, and administrative clerk. And right now, it's a head engineer and principal engineer and clerk.
Is there one company, oh, you know what, before I ask a question, Councilman Jeniak, is there something you wanted to add, or a question?
Does that line represent one vendor or multiple vendors?
He just asked my question.
Yeah. Multiple professional services.
Do you know the names of them?
Yes, we do. As you are aware, Keller and
Before you get
Kirkpatrick.
there, if I may,
Can you not hear me?
if you have multiple vendors, why are they not listed as separate line items for the purpose of what those vendors are?
No, it would be hard to predict accurately. When we estimate how much we're going to spend with each professional, you've got Gates Architecture, you've got Keller and Kirkpatrick, you've got Boswell. I may look to Dewberry to do a traffic analysis. I may look to Princeton Hydro for green infrastructure or dam work. Our dam inspections are in that line item, as well as NAGIPT's compliance. What else is in it?
Right, but that's exactly what the budget exercise is, an exercise of predicting what those costs are estimated to be for the various work planned to be undertaken for the year. I think we need a breakdown. That's a very large dollar amount. If you look at it compared to the overall line, it's got to be like 90% of that line.
So how we get to that number, you take a look at what the projects are on the horizon. For instance, this year we've got Kings Road, DOT grants, Kings Road, Mount Pleasant, Camp Hudsonia, Senior Center, and so those with their respective consultants,
So
that's
Mrs.
where
Bronte,
that's
if
where
you
you
can
add up.
list those out verbatim, why aren't they listed here in the budget request?
In other words, you're rattling them off
Yep.
in a consecutive fashion, but we don't have that same data that you're reading. Are those notes, or is that something you have printed out?
No, that's my notes, the budget, how we operate. I don't think that everybody lists, the various components of every line item for, education
But
or,
that's the sort of detail that's helpful for the council to consider, and
Yeah.
it really should be represented here in these sheets are called budget detail. And those are details that are not here for a very significant dollar amount.
If I may, Councilman Jeniak, is there something else you wanted to add before I jumped in?
Yeah, I would ask the CFO to provide us with the last year's transaction detail for that account.
Would that be difficult for you to do?
not at all.
Yeah, she'll take care of that.
And-
We could have that by maybe Monday or Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say, yeah, and, because last year's was only around 60,000, I would say, 2017 may be more accurate than 18. But
Why would the 1 year not be accurate?
No, it'd be lacking in services because we didn't get to those projects.
Oh, okay.
Well, feel free to send us both.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else, Jeremy?
No, thank you.
And is there anybody else here? Jonathan, you had something else you wanted to add? On some of the projects that you said, like the senior center, and we had, of course, Hudsonia Dam, and some of these larger ones and smaller ones, which one are small projects and which ones are large projects? Are they all large projects?
Define, like, up to 100 and then 200, 400,000?
Well, I mean, you're kind of in the business, you know what's small and what's large. A garage is small, a
Yeah,
house
but-
would be a large project. Or the senior
Yeah.
structure, is that a small project or is it a large project?
I would say they're on the senior center would be a smaller project.
So why don't we do the engineering on that rather than sub it out?
Oh, because if that's the way we want to go, but that would take me and my inspector off of the services that we provide to the community right now. And the senior center is architectural. I'm not an architect.
Okay. Is there any engineering in it, or is it all just aesthetics and architectural stuff that we're doing?
Right now, architectural. Interior improvements.
What's that?
Interior improvements. Interior improvements.
The senior center is already,
Go ahead, Mrs. Smith.
042,
it's already approved.
in 2017,
Microphone?
oh, sorry. education, I don't begrudge anybody education, don't get me wrong, but we only spent $340 through December of 18, and you're asking for $2250. Do you have anything planned that you know you're going to,
Yeah, so those are to maintain the licenses and certifications for both myself and the principal engineer. They are to continue education, whether it be for New Jersey DEP classes, flood hazard area, wetlands, all applicable to this department and services to the community.
okay, thank you.
Are some of those, you want to go first, Jeremy?
I just want to follow up Councilmember Smith's question about line 42.
Education?
You know, in the same way, if you have education and they're dedicated to certain titles, being educated for certain purposes, then we should see that listed out, right? And all we have here is an estimate per class. It's unclear as to which titles would be receiving that. And do you take AutoCAD classes for the purpose of licensure?
Well, that's the question I was going to ask too. But on page 32, Jeremy, if you were to look under the education portion of it, it may give a little bit more of a.
That's the line I've been looking at.
Okay.
It doesn't tell me what titles are receiving or plan to receive education, you know, for that dollar amount. It just says estimated $300 to $900 per class.
No, and I agree that the follow-up I would have, and Mrs. Fronte, you've been part of some of the budgets, or witnessing some of the budgets. Is there a time period that it's expiration of your licensing that you have coming up for this education that you need to continue your license?
I didn't understand the question.
In other words, you have a license right now, your certifications or licenses. Is there an expiration date on them?
Some of them are annually and some of them are biannually.
So if they're annually and biannually, when we look at them, still, in the last 3 years, it's never exceeded $1,000. And we've had, I would imagine, professionals, when you were here and before you were here, that would probably require those same.
I could provide a list of classes that are regularly applicable and that are needed. There's also, like I said, NGIPTES training, by the DEP requires us to do stormwater management training for the rules. Flood hazard training.
Were those trainings, excuse me, Mrs. Seeger, with those training, were they necessary in 2018?
I would have, possibly.
Were they available?
Some of them were.
Were they available in 2017?
Yes.
Were they available, you believe, in 2016?
No, the regulations change. And actually, as you're probably aware, they get more and more stringent.
They do.
So, and they require us to have more and more training.
Well, in 16, it seems since the change, it lessened the amount since the change in 17 and 18. And
So in 16, you got 965, and 17, 486, 18, 2250,
340.
and then 340 was used.
Well, what was adopted wasn't used, but again, you're asking for the same
Right.
amount from that year, and it just seems that it hasn't exceeded $1,000.
Allison, if I remember during the budget hearings, you have a new employee who needs certain training, more training that we want, and this also includes the administrative assistant she is the coordinator for housing and zoning or housing, and doesn't it include her training for the year?
No, that would be in our planning and zoning budgets. But
Even the COA classes?
the yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councilman Jeniak.
Yeah, so I'm hearing, it sounds like the administrator rattle off the potential titles that might be dedicated to. And again, that is exactly what should be detailed in the budget detail. Tell us the titles, tell us the types of classes, tell us the cost for each of those.
We're in.
I would ask the CFO
that, just so we can hear you in the microphone.
Oh, sorry, sure, I'll run it for the same as the other.
And
next
Mrs. Fronte, has there been any of this training so far, year to date?
The not sure whether or not they,
We're almost in April, the first quarter.
right.
Has anybody think tank?
No. No, I want to say the charges have been made to either conferences and meetings. Not,
No training so far?
no training,
Okay.
no.
Well, we still got, cell phones.
Council President?
Jeremy, before we get to you, I'm gonna ask if there's anybody else that has some questions first. Anybody to the left of me, you guys? No? Mrs. Smith? Go ahead, Mr. Jeniak. Mr. Quinn, do you have any questions?
The only thing I had was on the cell phone, which you started to mention.
You know what? I'm gonna give you my thunder on that. How's that? Go ahead.
Under the cell phone, could you explain the usage for the cell phone?
Certainly. The cell phones are for the head engineer as well as the principal engineer. We use them out in the field as well as in the office. They are approximately $98 a month, times 2, times 12. That's where we get the $1,250.
Is there anything else?
Thank you.
Is there, what does this include for the service? Like when we spoke with Mr. Garabant, they use it for satellite and GPS and stuff like that. It's a useful tool for their water department. Are there any tools other than the internet and stuff like that?
Well, actually, we're using the GIS mapping right now with the DEP to map our outfalls, so that is a very useful tool.
And that's a component in the $98 a month per phone?
I believe it's a
It's a data
ability,
issue.
yeah.
It's a data
Could be.
issue, and don't you use it for SDL?
We could use it for SDL as well.
What's SDL?
Spatial Data Logic, which is our program that we instituted last year in construction for online. They can pull up a piece of property and see what permits and everything are out there.
Did you say station data login?
Spatial Data Logic.
Logic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And are they used for personal use too?
No.
Either phone?
I don't believe so. I've advised my principal engineer not to.
Allison, you have your own private phone, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying that, Mrs. Seeger.
No problem.
You have a landline too?
In my house?
We're just adding on to it, Mrs. Seeger. I didn't know if you wanted to get that out as well. And equipment and supplies. I'm sorry, yeah, equipment and supplies. What equipment and supplies?
So that's typically applied to, well, right now the description, says, filing cabinets. Last year, we bought a conference table for our main area where we all congregate. If chairs need to be replaced, basically worksite supplies.
Is this, the conference table chairs well, let's just deal with that real quick. That's in one area that you have, that's to the right of your office as you're looking at your office? Does anybody else share that office? Or that conference area?
Like, with whom? Outside my department or inside the department?
I just want to interrupt you real quick. Like, I'm asking you specifically a question, and I have Mrs. Seeger telling you how to answer. So if we could just allow Mrs. Ferrante and Mrs. Seeger.
I didn't say a word.
No, you didn't, with your head nodding up and down.
Well, you don't know what that means.
What does it mean then?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
that's
you.
impressive.
Okay, other people use it in my department. It's not just for myself or the principal engineer, but others within construction, zoning, planning, all within that department.
So you take the brunt of those costs for others to use those items in that conference area?
Those are shared.
Okay.
Yeah, those are shared. Yeah.
And the file cabinets, we have more cabinets that we need to file, or Are we needing to archive some of the
Have you,
items
have
into
you seen that?
McVeigh?
Have you seen that office? Yes.
No, I'm not allowed to go back there.
Oh. Yes, there's quite a lot of files to file. I need a little bit more space. If you give me a minute, I could also look at what charges were applied to that line item.
I just didn't know if you're looking for additional space to do that in some of these projects that linger around. Like when I go up to the counter,
Mhm.
I see piles and piles of permits and folders that we'd hired somebody to clear that counter.
Mhm.
And then it's getting up again, it's getting larger and larger as a snowball effect. If there's things that have been closed and been put aside and we hired somebody to do that, and some of these other projects have been closed or dormant, I mean, is there a way to maybe make some additional room in another facility to store or archive those things rather than maintain them inside your office that would free up some of this space?
Hiring somebody to help us file would be a great idea, but I don't know whether it's in the budget,
I
but
think you did. We did
To-
already in the construction department.
to file, yes, but we're
And you have a
taking
you have a shared
taking in the
department.
volume of permits that we have coming in. But, I'm not understanding your question. Do you want to file things and put them away? It's constant. Residents come to the counter.
No.
Offers are made. We have to go and obtain files.
No, you were looking for additional file cabinets
Yeah.
to store more permits or data or information material, right?
Yes.
So I didn't know if you had old data that you could archive that would free up for new data to go in there.
Archive, like electronically?
I don't know how you would archive it. We have a McVeigh building that we archive.
Yeah,
We do things-
the rate at which people need information, it's nice to have it right there. Also, there's escrow that needs to be looked at. There's developers that need to, developers agreements that need to be readily available. There's easements that need to be readily available. So when a resident comes or a developer comes and has a question, I want to be able to access that information. Some files are over at McVeigh.
And what would those
And it takes
files?
a little
I
longer.
mean, we're getting off the beat, but what
Right.
would those files be over at McVeigh of your department?
Say a little older files.
And at one particular time, they were old enough to be archived over the McVeigh. And then we have files now that we've progressed from that period of time to maybe those other files would then be eligible to be. I'm just trying to free up space for you. I mean, if you're not willing to do it, then it's moot.
If I'm not, if you got an office concept for me, I would love it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, please, Mr. Sackett.
Just hop on that real quick. Is there a certain time frame we're required to hold these paperwork for?
Yeah, it's under Title 15 under DARM, Record Retention,
Yeah.
the Division of Archive Record Management. They don't use it, unfortunately.
Yeah, so was it 10 years? What is it?
Well, each record has a,
Okay.
Records like building permits, not so much, I don't think site plans apply, but like building plans, they're forever.
Okay,
You can't get rid of them.
okay.
well, plans are only for residential hospitals and
Yes.
buildings it's under 52345.
I was just trying to think if we had some stuff for 30 years and.
There is.
Toss it,
Because they have them over
Yeah.
there. They
Some-
have
Yeah.
permits in the
Yeah.
archive building.
Okay.
He's talking about destruction.
Yeah, if there's stuff that's so old that hasn't been updated in a while.
There are some things that
Yeah,
there, but you
that
have to
would
get,
free up a lot.
there's an authorization
Yeah.
form. I mean,
Yeah.
Mrs. Seeger's an RMC, so it's
Yeah.
not like it's her first rodeo when it comes to that.
I think Mrs. Clipperton can handle that.
No, you know what? I think you can. When you have some of the records that we have in the area, I mean, we can archive them over there. Like when sometimes I make requests for records, they're archived. So then it takes additional time. And this is pre-Mrs. Clipperton, but after Mrs. Seeger. So there's records that are retained over in another building over in the McVeigh. And there's been some questions on that. And under the Division of Archive Record Management, there's a retention schedule of so many different documents. Like an attorney's brief would be 20 years before you can archive it or destroy it. Permits and stuff, and then building plans, 10 years for residential, life expectancy for hospitals and so forth and whatnot. So I know the McVeigh building utilizes that area for archiving, but we don't always go through to archive when we can archive. So I was just wondering, again, new cabinets and filing cabinets choking the area of the building's not growing. So when you add more filing cabinets, you're actually shrinking the work area that you have, making it smaller. So rather than to buy new filing cabinets, if you were to purge them under the record retention schedule under DARM, to put them into archive, that was just a suggestion rather than spending $2,200 to buy new cabinets and stuff like that. That's all.
Good suggestion.
Thank you. Moving on. Mrs. Degman, it relates to a money amount. You don't have the budget in front of you, but we were dealing with a line item that concerned of office or equipment and supplies. So rather than continue adding more cabinets, there is a mechanism of archiving information to make room, and that's what we were discussing. I'm sorry that it bothers you, but that's what we were trying to address.
And it's not, for the record, it's not just for
I
cabinets.
know you have conference tables and chairs and stuff like that.
You know, workspace
Yep.
material that gets used.
Yeah, and you would increase the workspace if you got rid of some of the cabinets, or rather than put in new ones. Councilman Jeniak, is there anything else?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, and I've mentioned this in previous years, there are services like Iron Mountain where paper can be archived and then still be accessible in electronic format. So we wouldn't have to rely on physical space for storing things that we're unlikely to go back into.
A lot of municipalities actually scan documents and put them into a database where they can have easy access to that.
Yeah, with Iron Mountain, you can actually just ship them the paper and they will scan it for you and put it into your system and have it available for you.
Yeah.
There's another company in Oakland that does that, File Bank.
File Bank?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's several organizations that do that.
And I think the price has been,
I've suggested it for many years that the town should take a look at that.
And then
But
when
getting back to that line, account 058.
not with them, with
our
our computer.
As you just pointed out, it's not just cabinets, it's also a conference table, chairs, and other supplies. So I compared that sheet to last year's sheet, and 058 says purchase of file cabinets, conference table, chairs, and worksite supplies. It's verbatim the same as are most of the descriptions on the sheet. Are we buying a conference table every year for engineering?
Well,
No, but you know, it's in there as an example
sorry?
of what, it's in there as an example of what would be contained within that line item.
so what we're just questioning now, they were all examples, they're not intended to be purchased, like you weren't intending to buy
No.
cabinets this year or tables or,
Same with every description on here.
Yeah, but I think there's some misunderstanding as to what a budget detail is. I think we understand what equipment and supplies are, right? But this is the plan. This is a spending plan for this department for the coming year. And what we have here is a single line that doesn't actually give us a plan, right? It gives us a description, an example of what some of those things might be. Not what a budget is, not what we're looking for, right? If you need 3 cabinets, you need to say 3 cabinets. If you need a conference table, then that year it should say 1 conference table and 4 chairs to go with it.
well, we'll just make it real easy. Mrs. Fronte, what are you looking for? I mean, we have a description, you just told me it's just a general description. We have it in 2018. What is it that you need? Do you need a cabinet, do you need a table, do you need chairs?
A filing cabinet, yes. Chairs in the pit, yes.
You got the table last year?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So we need a cabinet and a couple of chairs.
Hold on.
And what are the worksite supplies?
Sorry, Mrs. Smith, we'll get off of this real quick. What? I know.
It's page
So
40
read
in
the front
the
of the
18 budget.
I'm sorry?
Page 40 in the 18 budget book, if that's where you're looking at.
I have it underlined as well.
Allison, can you get them a list by Monday, like they asked us, of what you're gonna order out of that line item?
I can do that.
Great, thank you. I was hoping now, so you wouldn't make, I mean, I thought you would have had a list from what you requested to come up with that number.
Right.
I would rather not have a list created to now reflect that number.
Understood?
Moving on.
To that point, Council President, it makes me wonder what was the discussion that took that request from 2,600
that? I'm sorry?
What was cut out?
Yeah, John's got Mr. Sackett's got a question.
What was cut out from the 2,600 to 2,250?
I think
How much was the table? Was that what it was?
it was, yeah, I think the table was about
$500. I think it was the table because we ordered it last year, we took it out. I can't remember every conversation I had, can you? What you,
You know, close to it. I got a pretty good memory. Is there anything else, gentlemen? Mrs. Smith?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Councilman? Councilman President?
You know what, if you wanted something on that line item, or?
Well, I want to go back to line item 28 and ask a question about that.
Equipment maintenance? I'm sorry, professional consulting?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Ferrante, is it possible for some of these smaller projects that need some architectural work and engineering work, you could consider going to a work-study program or an internship with a university that has some graduate students?
And that's a great way to reach out to the community. However, a little liability issue with that. I think it's a great opportunity to maybe do a model project. You know, get the students involved. But as far as designing something where property and property and people's safety is at risk, I think that we want to leave that to the professionals.
Well, I understand that, but if they drew up the plans and you oversaw the plans, wouldn't you be able to sign off on
That
them?
could be. That's a great option.
Have you ever participated yourself in programs like that?
I participated in Future Cities. That's with a middle school, and then not with a college.
But I mean yourself as being somebody in college doing plans for government or other, when you were in school?
Extended study, yes, as an extended study, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, she's aware of that stuff. I think the timing sometimes could be a concern, where you have a plan, you want it to come up, depending on the curriculum of that class, course, or university, or individual, it could create a little difficulty, maybe?
But I like that interaction with the students, and I think it's very beneficial for the professionals to give back to youth and inspire them to get in and encourage them to get into the field. So I think it could be a good opportunity to carve out.
Yeah. We could be selective on maybe a project that isn't so dire or technical.
And get them excited about the project.
Playground or something like that, or something kid-oriented.
Council
Anything else,
President.
Mr. Stein?
Okay.
Oh, I'm
When you
sorry.
finish.
I'm looking around like, where's that?
Hello.
Go
I got the
ahead,
mic
Mr.
on and
Freelander.
it doesn't make a difference.
Go ahead, Mr. Freelander.
Well, you can always set up, like, companies, internship.
Right.
Because with an internship, you can pay a minimum wage when they come in, or some get credit for their courses, and they could set up an internship. They can come if I have an intern in our company. They don't work 5 days a week, but they're getting college credit. So, and they'll, in the field of what I do, that's what they do. So I wouldn't be surprised if an architectural college has an internship program that you could look into.
That's a real good idea. Maybe we can, I mean, it's too late now, of course, under this
Yeah.
situation, but throughout the course of this year and following, maybe we can explore that.
Local universities, you reach out to the college program with,
We can even create a committee we can't do it right now because of the agenda. We can create a committee if you want to be a part of that.
Sure, another committee, why not?
Yeah, no. Well, it's a good idea that you have, if you got a passion and a direction and drive and maybe some outlets from
But
people.
it also helps the student,
It does.
to get, where they're going.
I have one comment about the consultant line. When you hire engineering staff, some have a PE, some have DAM. When you go out to professional consultants, you get the most expert in that field, so you make sure you're getting the up-to-date, and not just, like, I wouldn't go to a GP doctor for heart surgery, I would go to the heart surgeon. So that's why sometimes, a couple of years ago, we went with professionals more than the staff, and that's why the staff was cut from 5 to 3, and then we can only need to pay them when we need them for projects, and not keep them on all year long.
Well, you know, that's something interesting, because going back to that particular thing that you're saying with these professionals, I work with numerous engineers, and if I was to wait on their time frame for completion of plans and direction and cost analysis, I would lose the job. So when I have an engineer, usually it's a time situation. I get a plan drafted within a short period of time. I already know that going into it. The Keller Kirkpatrick that we had in September of 2016, just to get the stuff on October 18th of 18, 2 years later, I don't know if I would want to use a professional like that, because I would have lost that job if I used that guy with that same time frame and lack of professionalism to get something done in a timely manner, which was very simple. That wasn't a very tasking plan and analysis there. So thank you, Mrs. Seeger, for pointing that out.
Well, I don't think you have the quite story with Keller
Well,
Kirkpatrick.
you know what? Unfortunately, I rely on you giving me the accurate story, which you don't do, so you're right. It's tough. Anybody else have any other questions? Is there anything else you want to add, Mrs. Ferrante?
No, no.
You want to move on to planning? Construction's last. Unless you want to change it up to get Mr. Christopherson out of here. I'm sorry?
You can do planning.
Okay, planning, 36. 36.
And before we get into the 36, Councilman Jeniak, do you know what page we would be on to mirror this in the 2018 budget?
Take a quick look. We're looking for planning?
That's correct. I think it's account 0121180.
The planning board is on 43. I think it's 40.
I have,
I have
Yes.
planning board on page 36 and 35 is start.
you know what, Mr. Quinn, you're absolutely right. On the 2019, I was referring to the 2018, just to go by comparison, that's all. But you're right, Councilman Jeniak, it's 43 on the 18 book, not to confuse anybody.
Yeah, 45 has the salary and OE on the single sheet.
Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Fronte.
All right, so the planning board budget, salary and wages, it's remaining the same at $3,500.
Can't hear anybody.
Oh, shoot. The salary and wages for the planning board is $3,500.
Did you hear that, Mr. Quinn?
Yes, I hear that now.
And the, who is eligible for overtime?
On that is the principal clerk or the administrative clerk.
And that's their duties of performing as a secretary to a board?
Yes. Or that is to attend the boards.
Yeah.
have a question, Council President.
Go ahead, Mr. Palumbo.
Under the overtime, there was no overtime last year, 121 in 2017, and 361 in 2016. Did we even approach 500? Why is it just?
So that line item is just in case when the township engineer cannot attend the planning board meeting. The township engineer is typically at the planning board. And if they are not available, then either the administrative clerk or the principal clerk will fill in. At their rates, that $500 would be estimating a time of anywhere from 3 to 4 hours a meeting. Would be 3 to 4 meetings.
I got a question on top of that, if I can, Mr. Palumbo.
Good.
When you're present at a planning board meeting, you of course can speak, and based on your licensing and certification and experience, you can answer questions of the applicant or objectors or members of the board, including the attorney.
Yes.
The individual that fills your seat, that gets paid to be there in your absence, what can they do?
They are there to relay comments, be secretary, press record over there, and take the attendance, open up the building. So in my absence, there's typically somebody representing from the town staff that would be present at the planning board.
But they can't answer anything technical, do anything?
Nope.
At all?
No, they wouldn't.
I'm sorry, Mr. Palumbo.
That's good.
Anybody over there? Mr. Sackett? No, Mr. Freelander? You're good? Mr. Quinn, Mr. Jeniak, you have anything on that?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
If you want to go into other expenses, please.
Okay, other expenses, we're looking at $86,150. A slight decrease from 2018.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mrs. Smith.
Again, on professional consulting, we raised it $10,000 from what was spent in 2018. Are you expecting a lot of new?
No, that line item is in there for professional consulting. That is our planner who provides in-house services. It's that is a good figure in there for the anticipated level of service that he would be required for the residents.
So the Burgess Group is what we pay them, $40 grand a year?
I think we do.
Previous page that we looked at.
Council President.
Hold on one second.
That includes the attorney.
Yes, that's why I wanted to check before I answered, and yes, that includes the attorneys.
And this is for just the planning board and board of adjustment?
This is just for the planning board.
Okay, so the planning board attorney and the planner, so the planner being from the Burgess Group, it's, his fees aren't just for the attendance of some meetings that he has to be at, it's for the service that he provides 1 day a week throughout the year, the 52 times that he's here in addition to meetings.
Correct. And if there is a question that comes up and he's not here, he's available to us.
It's page 31 was the previous page you were asking about.
That's what I'm going to ask.
Page 31.
31.
It was 122.
Now, on page 31,
Under engineering.
30.
where you have, and Mr. Sackett had hit this, with the professionals and consulting, on that same line, obviously, the 028, in that sub-account, and then page 36 in that sub-account 028. Is the Burgess Group part of the professional and consulting on your engineering budget? Are they a component in that?
Yes and no, not as a planner, not as planning services. That would go under here if Burgess Groups, if we retain them for a rendering,
She said.
A different project, but not for planning services. That would not be
So we
applied.
pay them another additional fee in your engineering account,
If-
028.
If needed.
So Burgess gets paid out of two accounts.
Burgess is a professional service, a professional service listed, so.
Yeah, but I mean, they get paid out of account 0120165, and they get paid out of 0121180.
They could, but all planning services come out of the planning line item 028 of the planning budget. So if there is another project that we may need Burgess's services on, they have a landscape architect. We typically reach out to their landscape architect. That's what I would apply to that engineering line item, since I'm not a landscape architect.
Is the principal engineer a landscape architect?
No.
Is it a certification that he's trying to achieve?
No, you have to be an architect to be a landscape architect.
Okay.
Real quick.
Go ahead, Mr. Sackett.
How much, do we have any idea, a lot of different numbers here, different line items, any idea how much money we're spending on consulting for architecture?
That's a good question, John.
I could get you that number.
This be-
Architecture,
Yeah, this would be another thing to look into. If we're spending all this money on a consulting, maybe we should have an in-house architect. I don't know. It seems like no one's certified, but it could be more beneficial to the town to have one in-house.
I could get you that number.
Okay, just wondering.
Is it something that you have an interest in exploring yourself, or are you?
She's not an architect.
No, I'm saying to get it. Just because she's not now doesn't
Yeah.
mean she's not in the process of.
No.
Yeah, I just want to know. Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
good to have that number. I really want to know how much we're spending on architects.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't have any other questions.
Nothing on that? Just the extra 10,000? Do you know what the
Revised
attorney
land
is
use.
versus what the professional is?
No, because the attorneys is based on if there is a litigation. So if there is a litigation against the board, that's where the attorney fees would.
So when there's an appeal that's filed,
Yes,
the attorney only kicks in then, but the attorney's presence?
is lower down. That's in contractual, that's in,
Contractual used to be 29. 29 is
that's
contractual.
in legal services, 027, legal services, 8,500.
But it says here, contractual retainer for board attorney and litigation costs,
Right, litigation.
right? But you said that the 028 also included litigation.
Yeah, non-escrow professional services for attorneys, planners, and relative to land use applications. But the line item 027 is just for the board attorney, for the board.
They have 29.
And any litigation he defends. So the other one's
It's nothing.
non-escrow, correct?
Correct.
Councilman Jeniak?
Yeah, it's obviously as confusing, the council members have to read this because of the lack of detail here. And the same issue as before, this 028 line
So,
should be detailed as to which professional services. You know, it mentions here in-house office hours, doesn't say what those hours are, the frequency of those hours. And we really need that detail to understand what it is
they're in the
we're looking
contract.
at here. It sounds like the administration needs that detail in order to answer the questions as well.
Well, I think Mr. Sackett, he had, expressed to see what was there for architectural to see, what was involved, and, we're gonna get some of that information, early next week. Is there anything that you wish to add to that, request for information? Mr.
Is that to me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, look, I think we should see the transaction for the O28 account.
Mrs. Palmieri, is that something? Yeah, Mrs. Palmieri, she's got it. Thank you, Mr. Jeniak.
Yeah, and I would add the 112 account as well. At the bottom of the next page.
Does anybody have a question on 112? Did you? Go ahead, I'll let you have that one.
Yeah, I had a question.
Microphone, please.
Yeah, 112, I had highlighted also. 16, 19, 8, 17, we spent $1,900. 18, we budgeted 20 grand, we spent 9,400, and then we're back at 20 grand again. Just trying to see why we're, we fluctuate so much. 20, 2, 9, or we'd be at 30 this year. I don't know. It's just not much consistency on that line. It's all over the place. Just trying to figure out why.
It's for, that's a lot of for the master plan reexamination report and the land use elements. Those are elements that, they need to be done, is it every 10 years? I believe we had a, Highlands Rex,
Reevaluation.
in 2013, and it really, those are things that you work on, and, if the volume of applicants or the volume of resident services come in, requests come in, and you don't get to those items, but those are there so that we could work on these plans, these land use elements.
Are we coming up to an anniversary date of some of this stuff?
We have a our planner is working on a reexamination report.
So this money will go towards the planner for the services that he's doing? So the same planner that's getting monies out of the $47,000 out of the 185 account, or I'm sorry, the 180 account, as also as the 165 account?
Yes.
Should have been a planner.
Was there anything else, Mr. Sackett? Well, it's funny, if you didn't ask the question, you would never know to put them all together on those three different areas that, yeah.
Making
Yeah.
big bucks.
Yeah.
That's why they have so many different specialists in each corporation.
Sure.
You got the architect, you got the master plan. I mean, we did a master plan in '94, that's when the Highlands started coming, so they bill for that. I mean, it is what it is.
Vicious cycle, right?
It costs to grow.
So we're assuming that we're gonna spend 20,000 on 112?
That's when, if he gets to that master plan re-ex, then yes.
But do you have any projected costs? Like, did you get estimates or any of that at all?
Yes.
Mr. Jeniak, would you want that cost estimate?
Absolutely. I mean, every line in this budget is some sort of projection of cost, and it should be, for things that are quotable, there should be a quote to back it up. It's exactly how we did budgeting at the county and the state.
Okay, and did you get that,
That should be no different.
is that something like a recent estimate that you got when preparing the budget?
No, that was when it was put in. So when that planner, gave us an estimate to perform those services.
Do you know how long ago that was? Or is it going, since the 2018, do you think the estimate was back then?
Yeah, 2016.
It's gonna go up. It's going up.
Yeah, it's it's very difficult to get to these items, but so that's why they're planned for. They're a big line item to to.
But if you got an estimate 3 years ago, I mean, how good is that estimate good for? I mean, what's the length or expiration of that estimate? I mean, do they still honor it in 2019 or 2020?
That's what our professional, relationships are built on.
So that's in the contract, or, I mean, in the estimate that you have, it states that?
It's just an estimate. So there's only the PO, so it can't spend more than the PO.
But there was something to validate for the creation of the PO?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there anything else, Councilman Jeniak?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Quinn?
No, thank you, I'm good.
Anybody on this side? No? Mr. Palumbo? Ms. Smith, you okay? Page 42. Let's see, we were in 2018 on this. Just give me a second, Mr. Christopherson. It probably is, I just don't need it.
Page 51 and 18 book.
It's a permit.
So do we do?
That's okay. Page 52.
Come on.
This part.
We ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Christopherson, you want to give a kind of a synopsis, or, I'm sorry,
Are we
an intro?
We're on Board of Adjustment?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were on construction. Nope, my fault then, I'm sorry.
Mr. President? Before you move off of the planning board,
What's the question, Mr. Dia? I mean, we're already off of it. What's the question you had?
on page 37,
What's the question now?
just clarification, it says that professional consulting includes board secretary? Is the board secretary not an employee?
Well, and that's a question too, because the board secretary is in addition to the engineer and the planning board, correct? Like, there's a board secretary, or are you considered the secretary, and what other members are part of the board that we pay, other than the attorney? There's you that's there, but you're
The recording secretary. They pay the recording secretary
Yeah,
by voucher. She's not an employee.
okay. So, but I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a board secretary, it's a voucher that is paid, they're not an employee of the township.
As a non-employee?
It's not an employee.
And so the board secretary is not a regular employee that does this also?
No.
The meetings are at night,
So they get a 1099?
so, yeah.
I think we're on page 40. That's account 0121185. Go ahead, Mrs.
We
Bronte.
ready? Okay, salary and wages for the zoning board of adjustment, $1,500.
And who gets the overtime?
That is, again, either the administrative or principal clerk to attend those meetings.
Who is that?
The admin or principal clerk to attend the meetings.
Well, this is going to be extremely low
Mm-hmm.
this year, right? So far?
It depends on the meetings.
You haven't had any.
Well, then I guess that's a good guess.
Yeah. Were you aware of that by chance?
That there hasn't been a lot of meetings because there's not enough board members, yes,
Yeah,
I am.
okay.
And maybe they'll have a lot more towards the end of the year.
We hope so. You want to go through the other expenses?
The other expenses, yes. The other expenses, we requested 12,120, and it's recommended 11,920.
Council
Go
President.
ahead, Mr. Palumbo, sure.
On 027 Legal Services, the budget was adopted at 8,500, and it was exactly expended at 8,500.
That's what I saw, yeah.
Did it go over that, and the money comes out of a different fund? Or-
That is a contractual fee for the zoning board attorney.
And that's whether he attends, has meetings, or anything, right?
Correct. He is also, that's not just for meetings, he's also available to discuss
Discuss what?
questions that we may have.
For, like, what would the attorney, like filing, or, I mean,
Yep, filing fees, application fees, notices, just to confer with him.
we don't have a staff that handles that when you go there? Like, when you do an application for the BOA, you go there, you see the secretary at the
Right.
counter.
Yep.
They tell you everything to fill out.
Yeah, there's
Like,
things
I've
that
never had the
you would-
ability to call an attorney in any of the municipalities that I had to address an application or questions or whatnot. It would either, because they're representing the township, they're not representing the applicant, or, how could they
Right,
do
but
that?
we still seek him for legal advice.
So it's you using them for it, it's not anybody else doing it.
Anybody in your staff, right?
Yeah. Anybody in this department?
And there's no quarterly bill or monthly bill that comes in for that?
It's paid on a quarterly basis.
Is it identified for the billing? Is that the same for the planning board too?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions, Mr. Quinn, Mr. Jeniak?
No, sir. No, thank you.
Anybody down here? Mr. Palumbo, you were going, actually, I kinda.
No, it's fine.
Mrs. Smith? No? 42? Go ahead. Oh, I thought you said, line 42. Education.
Some of this stuff, instead of going line by line, maybe quicker if we just, I read it all of it, you guys read it, if we just hopped in and asked him the stuff instead of them having to go through, it's up to you, you're the council president, but maybe quicker, we just hop in with our questions instead of having to have them go through it line by line. I already went through this all, I'm sure everyone else has up here.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
Just hop in with our questions first.
I mean, Mrs. Fronte hasn't gone through each line account. She hasn't started at 021 to 058. We've been actually doing exactly what you just questioned.
No, I'm saying, if we turn a page, instead of him telling me on page 42, such and such is getting this, and we're going up this, I don't really need to see that. I'd rather hop on to 43, any of them, or 42, and just ask the questions we have, instead of having to go line by line.
Well, there's also people that don't have it,
Well,
they don't,
let them hop in too.
but they don't have the book. So when they give, have any numbers or anything, Mrs. Degman, do you have a book in front of you? Mrs. Lucas?
Sit right next to me.
I'm sorry? Okay. Would you rather not hear the numbers?
Yeah, I think you can speed it up, if everyone's in agreement.
In other words, Council President, if we've all reviewed these books, we don't believe there's an issue in, I don't know, 051 for, just by way of example, I guess to Councilman Sackett's point is, instead of going line by line, if there is nothing there to begin with, then just move on to the questions we have.
Yeah, but we haven't been going through line by line now.
She went through a lot, though. She went like.
Yeah, Council President.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, look, part of the expectation that exists is that the council is going through this budget as a group. Right, we can go through it individually, hopefully, most of us have done that on our own, but there are things that are spotted, there are other council members who spotted items that I didn't as we go through it. So I think it's important that we go through it. It's also important that we get an explanation and an actual presentation from the administration regarding these items. You know, we actually never got a formal presentation.
We're not, Councilman Jedniak, we're not saying not to go through it. We're saying that we all have gone through it, and what, to Councilwoman Smith's point and Councilman Sackett's point, is something that jumps out, we're going to ask a question on. If something looks like we don't have a question on it, and we're comfortable with it, then just move on without stopping there. Is that a fair point?
Yeah, 100%. I want to, speed it up. I don't need details on something that we're spending $200 on.
Yeah, well, I don't think we've asked that.
Big-ticket
I mean,
items.
yeah, I get it, and I think we've been hitting the big tech items.
Yeah, let's just go right to the big
But
ticket.
I think the
yeah.
last 20 minutes or whatnot with Mrs. Ferrante, we've been kind of hitting that, like what you're kind of describing. But we'll try it if there's something, we're done with the Board of Adjustments, the zoning board. We're going to go into the
Okay.
construction.
Construction 195.
Page 43, I believe. Go ahead, Mr. Dio.
On 41, just a couple of clarifications. On legal services, for the 8,500, it says it's the contractual retainer plus litigation cost.
We just addressed that. It's a one flat fee.
The question is, when a ruling of the Board of Adjustment is challenged and it goes into court, there's legal costs incurred for that. Where are those costs charged?
Mrs. Palmieri?
I can answer that. They are typically in escrow with the developer. They're typically in escrow for the developer, with
I
the
don't think
developer.
a developer doesn't pay for an appeal.
No?
No.
Saying the developer pays the township's
Oh.
legal costs generally?
No, I'm sorry. I misunderstood that. Yeah, so, yeah. The 027, yes, 027. 027,
The legal services.
the legal services.
2-7.
All the costs for, that occur for legal challenges to the Board of Adjustment, are put into 027. And so in 2018,
I'm sorry, I just flipped it
with
back.
$8,500 expended, and 2019, it's $8,500 requested.
I believe so.
Maybe you might want to get some clarification.
Okay.
So it could be a lot of legal costs that have been incurred over the year for challenges to the Board of Adjustment. And
So
I
if
just like
we
to
have
know where
litigation
those
for an appeal,
Some of
Look.
them get charged to me. Some of them get charged to me, I believe.
I'm going to ask that.
Some of them get charged to my general legal.
charged where?
My general legal and administration, yes. If they're not in if they're not in escrow, they go into general.
We're not getting on that right now.
General legal.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, but the 8,500 is not part of the appeal process. That's just for them, for the board.
That's the point.
Anything appeal. So that comes out of, outside of the contractual on 027. I guess out of the general legal fund is what you said?
Well, the point is that the township incurs substantial amount of legal costs to defend actions of the Board of Adjustment or the Planning Board. And so, Mr. Seeger clarified that, said that those costs go into general legal.
Yes, sometimes they do.
Yep. Okay. We're good?
So the other clarification is, where is the cost for the zoning Board of Adjustment Board Secretary?
We just went over that when the overtime, didn't we?
Yes.
It was just an
That's-
overtime.
That's all in the overtime.
Correct, because they're an employee in that department, but they have another duty that they do when they're on this dais during an applicant, or an application before the board. So then whatever their time is here, they get paid out of the overtime expense.
I think you got confused because we said that the recording secretary is different than the board secretary, just so you know. The
We don't have
recording
an employee.
for the board secretary is paid by voucher and gets a 1099. That's the recording secretary. The board secretary is paid overtime because she's a regular employee.
So for the Board of Adjustment, the board secretary is an employee.
Correct.
But on the planning board, the board secretary is a voucher employee.
Correct. Okay? All right, so we can go to page 43.
Construction. Tonight we have Gary Christopherson, my construction code official, here with me. So if we,
Thanks for coming, Mr. Christopherson.
No problem.
all right, regular salary and wages. That's $520,000 and 361. $520,361.
You want to talk about the increases?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
It's just contractual, right?
No, we are looking to have the keyboarding clerk move from part-time to full-time. That would be an increase from $23,280 to $41,658.
What page is that? Would that be,
42? 42?
Council President.
I don't have a 40, oh, I'm sorry, yes. I'm a 42 I'm going after.
Council President.
Go ahead, Mr. Janiak.
Yeah, on that topic of the position being converted from part-time to full-time, at the Monday budget meeting, we had requested the report of all employee actions over the past year, showing any promotions, demotions, hires, separations, retirement. I don't believe we've received that yet, is that correct?
I have not. I can't answer for everybody else.
Can we ask the CFO if she sent that?
Mrs. Seegert, have you sent that with the,
No, we're working on it as time permits.
and it seems that you've been very favorable. Hold on 1 second, please. It seems to have been very favorable for everybody else to give us that information for Monday or of next week of other things that we've asked. If you could just provide that as well, since we've asked it in the past.
We will try. We've been overly busy lately.
We have a time frame for a budget, so unfortunately, we're under some time constraints.
But you have all the information in your budget.
I
We
think,
have it spread across 300 pages. That report can't be more than 5 pages.
if you remember, I asked Mrs. Palmieri, when you were in the presence back in September, you went very quickly and gave us a list of employees that retired, that had left. We had an issue with one of them, and it was really literally in 5 minutes. So when I asked Mrs. Palmieri, would it take that much time, and she said no. I mean, I'm only going based on what it is. How much time would you think you'd need?
Maybe by next Wednesday?
Okay. That's the best we're gonna get right now, Mr. Janiak, on that, so we're gonna hold him to Wednesday.
We'll try.
We're gonna hold you to Wednesday.
We'll try.
Yeah,
Well,
Council
I mean-
President, I would just remind everyone, as we discussed on Monday, the council
What-
voted last spring for that to be a monthly report, and we've never received that report monthly. If we had, we would already be up to speed on this at this time.
You can, and then, you know what, just so we can end it on this, Mrs. Seeger, why is it so difficult just to narrow it down and just say, Wednesday? I mean, it's a matter of,
Well, because like today, I wasn't expecting for a 2-hour meeting with attorneys today turned into a 6-hour. I wasn't expecting that, so that put off my whole day.
Well, you know what? It's funny because we're asking you now after that had happened, so Monday.
But I
Tuesday,
don't
or
know what's
Wednesday.
gonna happen. It wasn't scheduled
Well,
for
you can
today.
put us on priority and you can take care of it. You can do it
I
over the
have
weekend.
priorities that I have to run the township for. The information you're asking for is already in the budget. You're just asking it to just make a cheat sheet for you.
Well, so you're just depriving us of the information that we're
I
requesting.
am not depriving
So
you.
we'll
I
have it-
said I would provide it as time permits. What, I can't tell you any more than that.
It's so vague.
I couldn't
It's so
help.
vague. I mean, it's so vague.
That's as best I can do, sir.
Mrs. Palmieri, is it easy for you to do it? You can do it. You've done it without Mrs. Siegert last time, so since she's so busy, maybe you can do it for us.
I can prepare it, but it's up to the administration to review it and release it.
And Council President, the last time that report was updated was in December when we were going through the contract negotiation discussion. So we're only talking about 3 months worth of updates, not even a full year.
At the fingertips, right? I mean, it's not like you're going through files and everything else. It's kind of cut and paste.
It's research. I have to make sure I don't miss anybody. There are
Right.
a lot of changes. I know it only sounds like a few months, but a lot goes on in here.
Yeah. But when we did it last time in September, you went back all the way to June. It was just 3 months, and you did it in 5 minutes.
I didn't do it in 5 minutes.
Well, it was pretty quick. I wasn't there very long. Our meeting took an hour, and we were already there for 45. So Wednesday, thank you. Moving on.
Okay. Questions or?
I don't know if you were just giving us
No,
kind of a description of what
I was
you got
just
going on.
letting you know that we really need this position, and it's based on the volume of applications that we receive, the intended projects that are on the horizon, and that we currently are experiencing. As you know, we have Pondview chugging along, which is, over 1,000 units, 176 already completed. We also have Lennar over on Green Pond, and on the horizon is Morris Commons with 345 units. So that is a lot of projects on the horizon, not to mention all of our restaurant facilities that are either currently being developed or in the works. And so not only to deal with the current workload, intended workload, but also in succession planning, because I have 2 clerks that are looking in the near future towards retirement.
We had 2 principal clerks that did a desk audit because they were doing so much extra work that was on there. So there was an increase in their salaries based on their desk audit for what they did. And that desk audit included of their permits and filings and everything else. But after they got the desk audit for that, you brought somebody in for the keyboard clerk that you have that's going in there. And that really was originally just to clean up all the stuff on the back table and filing permits and putting things away and assisting others, correct?
And I believe for the SDL conversion as well.
But the principal keyboarding clerk,
We have only a keyboarding clerk. We don't have a principal keyboarding clerk.
okay, I'm sorry. She has progressed to being a very valuable asset, and we are cleaning up old permits. There's thousands of old permits, and we're working on them. And the desk looks filled right now because we are stacking them. They don't fit in the filing cabinets, and we are going to offload those to, just like last year, we're going to offload those to McVeigh.
You're going to archive them
Yes.
to make more
That's
space.
that's why the front counter looks a little bit busy right there. Yes.
It's been like that for over a decade. So this individual originally was approved at 14,000. It's increased to 23,000. Now we're going to almost double that for this 42,000.
Well, the income the department generates is still a $200,000 surplus.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get the job done, and I haven't heard any disparities of inspections and how long it takes to get a permit in a while. So
I mean,
it has been a good help.
backlog, though. I mean, how do you have thousands of permits of a backlog?
That's not, it's just from 99 or from 90, 96 is what I'm saying, not closed out permits.
From the prior construction official?
Oh, yeah, from the beginning of time.
And Council President, what does that mean that they're not closed out in a 20-year period?
Well, you know what, I mean, I know the gazebo still hasn't been closed out. You know, that was 1989, right?
Yeah, we found, the only record we found on that was from tax, that's it. So I went over to McVeigh, and that needs attention over there also. So I've been trying to, I have commissioned a person in road department, and we were gonna go over there and straighten it out.
What, the gazebo?
No, the McVeigh building.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do we have a CO over there yet?
You have a what?
CO over at the McVeigh building?
I don't know.
You don't?
There's thousands, so.
Yeah, no, I just knew that was an issue where we have men working inside there, and there wasn't a CO issued a while back.
I will check on that Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. That's the first I heard of that.
No, you're new though. Now the change of the for the keyboard clerk at the $41,658 and their hours are going to be increased. Is there benefits and pension that's associated with that?
Yes, once it's full-time, it's pension and benefits.
I've got a question, Council President.
Go ahead, absolutely, Mr. Plum.
All right, so we're going to add a full-timer because of the spike in volume in work, right, due to Pondview, and I think you mentioned some other projects, am I correct? Is that the justification? I'm just asking.
Yes, and also right over there by the record, there's going to be 342 units there.
Okay.
And yes, and Allison reminded me, a couple, 3 years, we're going to be losing people at the front of our office, and it takes a while to get acclimated to this position. So it's not like you can just bring in someone green off the street. So I mean, if you want to relook at it in 2 years and we're not busy, that's perfectly okay with me. You know, it's just, but with the money's there. The money's there. The exact numbers, I'll have Allison tell you what they are. We're turning a profit, you might say.
So what would happen to that person when the spike is no longer a spike of work?
You have to go through some sort
Just asking, what would happen?
That's why I brought up the retiring. I mean, it's almost, I can't say, but it's coming soon, so. But if not, then we'd have to look at it at that time, yes.
Have there been papers put in for the retirement?
No.
Council President.
Go ahead, Mr. Freelander.
Also, the plumbing subcode official, if you look, the numbers there went down from 65,000 to 40, so that's probably a new hire
No,
at a lower rate.
no, he's been there. We were sharing him from Denville. Is that correct?
Well, not sharing, we were paying him separate, you know, but he did work in Denville and he works in Montville now, so.
So he's reduced his
No,
hours?
no, I don't know what happened.
You don't know why there's a $25,000 reduction?
Went from 65,000 to 40,000 from 2018 to 2019.
You have no idea.
No,
And it says.
that's what we pay him, we're paying him,
Well, why the difference though?
okay, yeah.
You were paying him 65,000. What's with the why? How do you not know a $25,000 difference?
That was pre-Allison.
And
No, it's not.
it does say that he's being.
You were here last year.
The position is budgeted for full-time beginning in 2019, but the pay went down. I don't understand that.
Part-time.
It's always been, yeah, there's no, it doesn't say,
It says under B down below.
Microphones, please.
BB.
On the same page, 42A, all the way down below? Yeah, you don't? Oh, you know what? She gave them to us to print off the computer, Mrs. Palmer.
yeah, I don't have it.
Oh, you know what? I have them.
I think that's what it is.
This is the information that was omitted in the original delivery to the council. This is according to
That went on a year ago.
It says supposed to be position is budgeted as a full-time beginning in 2019, so he was being paid $65,000
No,
as full-time.
I believe he was being budgeted at 65 because he was budgeted as a full-time, but in reality, he's
Yeah.
part-time at 20 hours a week.
Okay, so. So technically, based on the 2018.
So he is definitely part-time.
He's part-time at 20 hours a week. I believe
Thank
it's
you.
listed at the bottom of the page.
All right, can I, just going back on its same person, 2016, he was a part-time, correct?
It's been part-time straight through.
Straight through, and it was $76,000.
Again, budgeted, it's not actual, it's a budget. He was budgeted for full-time, but I don't, and again, I don't even know if it was the same, I don't want to say his name, but the same.
He was.
That many
yeah.
years?
He was here.
He's been here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years as an employee?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't.
I thought he was hired.
Hello.
I don't understand how you put in a budget for a full-time when he's actually part-time.
Well, I think what the clarification is, they weren't actual employees.
See?
Back then, they got paid with a 1099.
This is-
And when I came, I said, that's totally wrong. DCA, that's totally wrong, so we had to make them legal.
Right.
We had to go through civil service and all that, so I really can't speak for what happened before that, but they were 1099s before, so.
I agree, and it was, the position was budgeted, and then he actually became an employee on March 1st, 2018, at 20 hours a week. So he was being paid 1099 prior to that, and his position was budgeted with the hopes of bringing him from the operating OE side into the salary side, which he has been now.
So,
Okay, but
I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith, go ahead, I'm sorry.
when you budget for a full-time employee, that raises the overall budget,
Right?
which is what the taxpayers pay on, so.
Again, we were budgeting for him in the salary line, but we were paying him out of the OE line, so it was a wash.
Do they get benefits now?
They get benefits now. If he's full-time, he's part-time.
Okay, but I see.
It
I
says
see.
full-time now.
No, he's part-time,
doesn't.
20 hours a week.
And then it says dash, read B on 42A. It's a little, it confuses you, because it says, part-time position paid 20 hours a week,
So how
40
does it get
hours per pay
benefits if it's
period.
Correct.
Position is budgeted at a full-time beginning in 2019. B on 42A. It's just misleading. I mean, he's only part-time, he'll get part-time, that's all.
See,
He was when we prepared the budget in 2018, he was budgeted at full-time. He wasn't made a permanent until March 1st, so we were still in the process of the budget cycle, of preparing the budget, because we submitted the budget to you prior to this event happening. So we didn't readjust the budget for his becoming at 20 hours a week. Now he's full-time as of March 1st, 2018, so I've reflected that in 19's budget.
Okay, because it just says here, part-time, 20 hours, and then you have another area where it says position is budgeted as full-time beginning
I would
in
have-
2000.
That might be an edit.
That is
might
an
be an error
It should
on
be,
my
I'm
on my
sorry, it
part.
should
It's
be.
very confusing.
It should be
That's why I
part-time.
question you,
You're right,
Yeah.
yes.
That's
because, you know, I'm looking at it, if he's 20 hours, then why is he getting benefits?
Yep.
No, he's budgeted part-time, sorry,
That
in
was a
2019.
carryover. That was an error.
Duly noted.
All right.
Other than that, I don't have any
So
questions.
that's a decrease, 25 grand.
Zoning officer, is there additional hours that are added onto it to the $5,000 increase? It was 25%? 30, I'm sorry. Mr. Christopherson?
Probably doing more
That
hours.
should be,
Allison's
That-
gonna answer that? Allison will answer that?
Oh, that's cost.
yeah, that's CASA.
You would,
$5,000?
you increase the salary.
$15,000 to $20,000.
No, that's 30, that's,
It times it by 20.
it's a 30% increase, 33% increase. Actually, yeah, 34. Yeah, well, you're going from 15 to 20.
I just thought it was a real simple question. Is there additional hours? Because I believe the zoning officer is here, is it one day? Or is it here 2 days now?
2 days a week.
Saturday, and what's the other day?
Saturday, no, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
No more Saturdays?
No more Saturdays at this time. Unless there's something, unless if Tuesday there's not a volume of work to be done, he's not going to mobilize and come here. And so then he would adjust that for Saturday.
So, and I'll get right to you, Councilman Jeniak. We have these building inspectors that are here every day.
There's a building inspector here every day, but it's shared position between two building inspectors.
Well, we have a subcode, and we have,
I'm the subcode for building.
for plumbing, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But you're here full-time, obviously.
Yes.
And then you have, no matter what, between the two, the two individuals each get 40,000, or is that divided between the two? I don't want to say the names of them, but.
Right. What are you talking about, the building inspector?
Correct. An electrical inspector. Well,
That's,
one of them
that's,
holds.
that's, the 40,000 is a together number? That's a total cost for building inspection?
So they're not full-time then?
No, no.
What it has here for B, which is the same thing for the plumbing subcode.
But we corrected that. It should be part-time.
Just cross that off.
Which one?
They must have something else that I ain't seen.
It's his position, his budget is full-time.
B should say 20 hours a week, 40 hours of pay, position budgeted part-time. Just
Yeah.
error.
Full-time.
Error.
But the plumbing subcode is here every day.
He's here every day.
And he makes $40,000 for being here every day and doing constant inspections. He's a subcode, he can approve plans and everything else and permits and whatnot. And then we have a zoning officer that's here for only 2 days and gets half of his salary. I don't understand that. No license required, there's nothing of any special expertise.
Yeah, I should have.
But yet they're getting half of what somebody that's certified on multiple levels under the UCC and working every single day.
Yeah, so Joe Costa is a.
You can't say names.
Oh, shoot, I'm sorry. Our zoning officer is a certified zoning officer, so those require special certifications to be a zoning officer.
Is that something new?
No, you always have to have a certification to be a zoning officer.
Because I thought before in the past, we've always had, and we talked about this last time, Mr. Christopherson, the construction official or a building subcode or inspector was a dual role. Our prior construction official before you was a zoning officer and a construction official. And
Yeah.
we kind of, we talked about that with you doing, or somebody doing dual roles. It was cost effective. They were here every single day, and it enhanced and expedited permits.
There is a certification for zoning, so I don't know if the previous construction officials got that certification. Maybe it's not mandatory. It's not through the UCC at all, but
Well-
there is, the ICC puts out books that you can buy, and they actually describe what the zoning rules are. There are a lot of rules to know, so you don't want a rookie doing it, so that's what I'm saying. He's a very experienced gentleman.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
there was nothing of a comment of him being a rookie.
Right.
But, my thing is, in the past that we've had in other municipalities that have an agency, a department through the state, a building inspector, subcode, or a construction official handled the role as also a zoning officer. And as you talked about, you wanted to increase with this keyboard clerk to somewhat expedite and help out with this workload. Well, a lot of permits are prior approvals, zoning being one of those prior approvals. Having somebody here only twice, when we can have somebody here that's a building inspector or a construction official holding that same title, would be here every single day, it would actually expedite the permit process that much more. Would you agree?
I would say, a full-time zoning officer would be great, but,
I'm talking about having a person hold dual roles.
right.
Like you could be a zoning officer. There's nothing that bars you from being that.
Well, I'm not trained, so I'm not really interested in that.
There's a certification by the Center of Government Services. You have to take 8 courses and become certified. And our zoning official currently has that, as well as continuing educations to support that certification. This individual is also zoning officers in multiple townships with multiple experience.
Nobody was questioning his experience. I'm
And-
just talking about having,
So the additional person would have to we'd have to pay for those additional certifications and continuing educations. And you would have to check with their availability, because most of these subcode officials work for other towns.
our construction official works here every day.
I need every hour of his day.
Yeah. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
With some of these employees that are working for various towns, is the pay exactly the same in the other towns as we are? If we work in 15 hours here and we're paying him $10, is he getting, if he works 15 hours in another town, he's also getting $10, or is he getting $8?
No, it's fairly competitive between the towns.
But it's not the same?
Not exactly, no, it's, you cut your own deal.
Okay, interesting, okay.
What about doing a shared service
For what?
for, like if we had an official and we had our building inspector that did Victory Gardens? Why would we have Victory Gardens pay them when we can actually have them go down there to do the service, and we would make money on top of that with a shared service offsetting the cost of their salary?
Well, right now, I'm like maxed out, so,
I mean, we've done that. We've had officials in our town
right,
that did that service.
yes.
That profited on their own from doing that service throughout their day, lunch or another day, and we can't explore that maybe?
If a town approaches us, I guess we could get more hours or whatever,
Maybe we can approach them?
We couldn't, a town would have to approach us, I'm not, yeah, our subcodes are all part-time. Well, the electric is considered full-time, but,
You just said that our electric, we're splitting those two. Mrs. Palmieri, is the electric full-time or part-time?
The electric is part-time. He's part-time, he's 24 hours a week, 48 hours a pay period.
I know. What's that? No, I just, the main thing that we're focusing on was the zoning officer. Could you explain the increase?
I know that for the last couple of years, Mr. Costa, when he first, the zoning officer, when he first started here, was a couple of days a week and a half a day Saturday, and then he went down to 1 day a week, and then he came back because we needed more time for him, and I think that was the difference in his salary.
So it was 2.5 days down to 1 day to now.
I'm not sure exactly, but I know
But you're stating that as if you are.
I said I'm not sure exactly, but I remember a conversation that he was, first when he was hired, he was more time. Then he got another job in another town, and he decreased his hours to Saturday, and then he wanted to come back here because he liked working here, and we needed him here more, so he adjusted his schedule, and he comes here more often.
Now, when he came here on just Saturday, that you guys had hired this individual for a service, what hours was it open to the public to utilize those services on that Saturday?
We have a
Could you meet with the
We
zoning
had
officer?
a principal clerk who would take all his messages and would give it to him, and he would come and do all the inspections on Saturday. And anybody who wanted to talk to him, he was available.
On Saturday?
Yes, if they scheduled it ahead of time. Yes.
On Saturday, he would also catch up on,
So he would answer the phone on Saturday?
If it was scheduled ahead of time, he would call the people back from the principal clerk, would give him the messages, and he would speak to whoever he needed.
So back to the same question. What is the what's the reasoning for the 5,000 increase?
I saw he
He's
got
being
it.
paid less for 2.5 days, and now he's paying more for less days.
No, he's working more now. That's what I said. That's why it went up.
You said to me one day,
He used to work on Saturdays, and now he comes different days, and I think it was a half day on Saturday. I would have to look back in the files, so if you would like us to look it up, I'd be happy to. But also the administrator prior to gave him a 1% raise.
it's $5,000 from 15,000. That's not 1%.
He must be working more hours. I will find out. It doesn't say
You know what,
how
real
many
quick,
hours.
How would you not know that? I mean, we're in a budget. You put a budget together, and we have it here. You had it as part of the hearings that you took place in November, and nobody knows why there's a 5,030+% increase to that person's. And Mrs. Ferrante, they work in your department, right?
correct.
This came, the raise,
Mrs. Seeger, if I could just hold off for 1 second with you. Mrs. Ferrante, do you know the difference as to why the payment of $5,000?
I believe it's because he increased his hours. Now,
So the 2 days that he was last year at 15,000,
I'm not saying it was 2 days. We have a letter from the prior business administrator, Mr. Brewer. Due to the rearrange alignment of hours and revised schedule, there is agreed upon change in the annual compensation. Please adjust Mr. Costa's, the zoning board annual salary to 20,000 effective pay, period 12/2018. And then 2019, it was 20,000 times 1.02. That came from the former administrator.
but 12 of 2018, is that what you told me date was?
May 2018, sorry.
It's paid,
So after the budget
It's
was,
pay period 12/2018.
so, yeah, sometime around the middle of the year.
so we passed the budget in 2018. We approved a lesser number, 15,000. And against what we approved in 2018, the administrator increased it to 20 grand?
Correct. And he can do that as long as he stays in the budget line for salaries for that department, which he did.
If you compare these two numbers, it's 2%.
Yeah.
2018 approved should say 20,000 and not 15,263.
It was 15,263 because at the time the budget was prepared, it was 15. And then it was increased to 20 later, after the budget. We were either in the cycle or just after it was adopted.
Is there time sheets that they fill out?
Timesheets.
Should be.
Does it cost?
yes, yes,
Clocks.
So there's a
yes.
time that goes on there. So if we
Yes.
had a comparison from January of 18 to June of 2018, there would be a difference of hours?
Yeah, I don't know why the increase, and we're asking for no increase in and above what was approved in that memo.
No. Well, you didn't know the memo because you couldn't answer the question.
Right.
So now you're answering it to what you saw, but
Right.
before you had no
Right.
idea when you assembled the budget.
No, we had conversations, and that's,
We can't remember every single thing, but we didn't change the salary, right, from the
Right.
chair to now?
We're looking at the budget because we don't have that included with the budget, Mrs. Seeger.
right, and we're providing you the backup.
Right, after the budget's been completed and we're asking the question now.
You're asking for an explanation, we're giving it to you.
Council President,
Go ahead, Mr. Jeniak.
what's the date of that memo?
May 7th, 2018.
I thought he was gone by then.
I was just gonna ask you, was the previous administrator even the administrator on that date?
Yes, he was. I think, if I remember correctly, he left May 31st, 2018.
Council President, with regard to this sheet 42 and 42A, I think some of the difficulty we're having here is we don't see on these sheets the
He's a salary, he's not an hourly wage payer.
Yeah, his is actually, typically part-timers are hourly. This particular individual receives a salary of $20,000.
Is there any benefits to that?
No.
It's a part-time position, but it's paid as a salary?
That's correct.
Is that normal, Mrs. Palmieri?
Well,
He's
can-
also on call.
yeah.
He answers his phone whenever we have a question. He answers any of our emails, so he worked it out where he got a salary for performing the job we asked him to, and he's done a very good job.
He also attends court, so when court is in session, he'll be here for the entire day for any
And
hearing.
what are the days again that are his employment? What days does he come in?
Typically, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays unless there is a court.
So he'll switch that day, though. He'll change his Tuesday
Yep.
to a Wednesday.
Yep.
So there's when you say that he comes to court, well, he's coming on switching his day to come on a
Right.
day.
So
There's
again,
no benefit that we get out of that.
if he's here for part of the day for that day, the remainder of it is with court. So there's additional hours in there.
He works above, well, I'm a little lost. If we have court and his day is from 8 to 4 o'clock, and he switches his Tuesday to Wednesday, which is court, and he's here waiting for court and going through whatever is necessary for the time that it takes, he doesn't then stay later at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night to finish his duties of the time frame that he was in court, does he?
Sometimes court doesn't get out till 5 or 6 o'clock at night. Court doesn't end the same time every day. Sometimes it ends at 11, sometimes at 4, sometimes 6.
Yeah, I mean, typically from talking to our judge, he tries to get out before 4 o'clock, unless it's a special session of some sort. But regardless of that, there's a day it's just swapped out, so it's not an additional day, as you kind of made it indicate. So he's giving up one day, but he's taking another day.
Is that
Giving up
every
Tuesday
time?
to come to court on Wednesday.
Every time? He does that when he can.
Depends on the volume
But,
of,
like,
of work. It depends on the volume. So
Well, if he has court, then would he be here 3 days then?
no.
No, I know, but she's,
You know, some salary people get paid for what they do and perform the job they're asked for, and not everybody has to count. It's like you hire an attorney. Sometimes they're not hourly rate; they're a project. It doesn't matter how many hours it took them. This is the rate that you are giving them to perform a job you want done,
So
and
if
he's
you-
doing it.
and if he works less, he could have no work on Tuesday and still get paid, right? It could go both ways.
It's possible, but they don't. He always has work. Believe me.
Council President?
Yeah, we can, this is the last thing we can get off this topic. We just haven't got an answer for it. Go ahead, Mr. Jeniak.
Yeah, so again, I'd like to request that for 2018, 2019, on sheets 42 and 42A, that for all the part-time employees, we receive an hourly rate, the number of hours they work, and if any of the part-time employees are quote salaried part-timers, that we receive the salary for each year and the number of hours per week that they were either were expected to work in 2018 or are expected to work in 2019. That way we can compare the numbers and see whether the increase is due to an increase in hours or an increase in the rate being paid. And I think that should answer our questions definitively.
Can you repeat that, please?
That request clear to the CFO?
Can you say that a little bit louder? No, I think it was difficult for Mrs. Seeger to hear that.
So we have 5 part-time employees, and 1 proposed, 6 part-time employees for 2018 and 5 for 2019. Those are hourly. Would give us the hourly rate for 2018 and the proposed hourly rate for 2019, as well as the number of hours worked or expected to, or budgeted to have worked in 2018 and proposed to work in 2019.
9:30.
And for the one identified part-time employee who is salaried part-time, that we receive the salaried amount for each year, I think just the number there, but the hours per week worked for 2018 or expected or planned to work in 2018 and proposed to work in 2019.
Okay.
And I think that should give us the info we need to be able to see if the hours have gone up or if the rates have gone up.
Mrs. Palmieri, do you need any clarification, or do you want?
No, I think I've got it.
Or do you want? Would it be easier for him to email you that?
No, I think I've got it. It's just, the hour, I think I almost can answer it. The hours are listed on the page, A, B, C, D at the bottom. Those are the hours that they're budgeted for.
The problem is there's three Bs, and that B one doesn't make sense, and there isn't really an explanation for D.
The D is the unique one, because the D is a salary. I could,
If you could simply, I think you understand my request.
I do.
I think that would clarify these two sheets for all of us.
But it's 30-hour pay periods, but 15 hours. That's a pretty good gig.
It's $26, little over 26,000 hour divided with a 15-hour work week. So you do 20,400 by 52. Comes out to 396, 35, 2650. Give or take a couple.
Mr. Christopherson, how many inspections does it average for a building inspector? Like they usually do like 4 or 5 a day.
Well, every building inspection is different. You can go look at footings in a deck, or one building inspection is the whole building at Pondview. So, that could take all 4 hours.
So it's 4 hours of inspection that you guys do a day.
Yes,
Okay.
right.
Can you?
Well,
can
no,
you-
that's what the building inspectors do, you know. I go out and do about 4 to 5 hours myself, yes.
And then the rest of it is all office and
Yes.
admin.
Yep.
And they have to do the same thing. Like a subcode has a little bit more power than an inspector.
Yes.
So does an inspector do admin as well, or does it pass
No,
along?
they don't do, they make phone calls and such, but they don't sign off on the plans, no.
And they
The subcodes sign off on the plans.
correct.
That works,
I
right?
understand that.
Yep.
And they can't do more than 4 hours of inspections to get caught up for all these backlog permits that you got.
No, the backlog of permits is not the ongoing ones right now, it's the old ones from time.
They would still need inspections, final COs, final
Yeah, well,
CAs.
that's what we're doing, is sending out letters, and then we have it timed, so if they don't respond, then we send out a second letter, and so forth, yeah, so.
Gentlemen, we've been really hitting on that one. Anything else that you want to add? Yeah, I agree with you too. Yeah. Is there anything else, Mrs. Ferrante?
Do we want to go over other expenses?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything that you want to hit. Yeah. Go ahead.
Line 51, vehicle purchases. We're replacing 3 vehicles for one. What type of vehicle are we getting? Vague.
Those are the aging vehicles that was given to us by the vehicle, I don't know what to call that title. Vehicle liaison, vehicle.
I haven't received anything from the vehicle
Fleet.
review. I'm the chairman of that. I haven't received anything from anybody, including
On
the chief.
On the fleet manager, on the projected vehicles in our fleet that would be nearing their life cycle come, if you guys approved this vehicle.
So we're gonna get rid of 3 though, we're only getting
No,
one.
one of them.
We're getting rid of one of those.
Yes, so currently actually 412 is actually up at the garage right now. Can you hear me? 412 is up at the garage right now needing brakes, muffler, and shocks. And based on a conversation today, they're gonna do an analysis of how much that is.
What's the vehicle? What is worth 412?
412.
What is it though?
It's a Durango.
A Durango. So we're doing brakes, shocks, and an exhaust.
According to a conversation today.
Yeah.
The other ones are 401, and is it 413?
411.
411.
So which one are you looking to replace?
That's up to the,
So the only one out of 401. I'm sorry, Jonathan. I'm actually cutting in what you were saying. Go ahead, bud.
It seems like they don't know which one they're replacing.
They
They're
don't.
trying
I
to
would,
decide.
I don't make that, we don't make
Okay.
that call.
But what is the new vehicle you're looking to get though?
I won't make
You
that
don't even
call.
know.
I don't make that call. No, I don't make that call
So
either.
how do you come up with 35,000 then?
That is given to the fleet, by the fleet manager.
Who's the
It
fleet
would be
manager?
nice, we did talk about this last year. for the vehicle review committee to actually know all the vehicles in advance. We did talk about this, and we were told we were gonna get them. We never got them.
No, and you know, we did that good analysis on that 636 truck,
Correct.
which they still currently use that they were gonna get rid of.
Because there's a lot of new vehicles in here, and,
But
I wish we just had a list of what they were and blah, 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 you know,
but
we don't have nothing.
even brakes,
Yeah.
exhaust, and
Buffalo,
shocks.
500.
I know.
Not even,
And
You know,
no,
I'll do
no,
it.
the that one's a 03, 04
Yep.
on that one, and then the other one is 401. I don't know what this means, but she tends to stall out a lot in the cold. I don't know what would cause that.
Well, we have mechanics to figure that out
Yeah,
for
so there was
for
up,
free.
it was up there, and they were trying to diagnose what was wrong with that as well.
And what number was that one?
401.
401, and we don't know what that is?
A Ford Explorer, 04,
Okay.
93 and change, 93,000.
And these vehicles don't really get driven, there's not a lot of miles that are put on these vehicles. I mean, 93,000 for an 04, it's not a lot. And most of the time,
They get rusty more than anything. You know?
right. But they still drive though.
They get cycled through between 4 full-time employees and the 6 part-time employees, so a total of 10 employees cycle through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 vehicles.
But again, they get to destination and that's it. They're not hauling material, towing
Nope.
anything. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
from here to there, from the next job to the next inspection
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Basically 4 hours out in the field, but we don't know what the amount of hours are being driven because it's such a close area. I mean, we don't do Picatinny, we don't do open space, so it's only maybe 30 or 28 square miles of driving around the areas. that
Those
we would
vehicles
do.
aren't hauling anything, are they?
Nah.
Nope.
nah.
So why do we need Durangos and Explorers? Why couldn't we get like a smaller car for 15?
Well, four-wheel drive for the construction sites, I think would
I
probably.
was just gonna say that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes.
Still need all.
Get an
But they
all-wheel.
could be-
It really doesn't matter what size they are, as long as they're four-wheel drive.
We can get a two-door rather than a four-door, something small, yeah. Second, is there anything else that you want to add on there?
Council President.
Yes, Mr. Quinn, go ahead.
Yes, what we used to do with those vehicles is cycle them through other departments that may need a vehicle. If it was deemed that the vehicle through the garage, that the vehicle was salvageable and usable, because of the low mileage, it would be pushed to Dial-A-Ride or somebody else, and that would be utilized again, saving the taxpayers money and replacing vehicles.
Well, I think in this case, I wouldn't put a vehicle that maybe be adequate for Dial-A-Ride. We're dealing with people with challenges and going in there, as we talked yesterday with dialysis. I don't think that would be an idea. If these guys are gonna bang them up and go on construction sites, let's let them go through the whole life expectancy of these things. And if it's a small amount of money of a repair, which brakes, shocks, and exhaust is nothing, that's the gravy train of mechanics, we can probably continue to repair them to keep them on the road.
And or if the dog ward needs a vehicle, through health department, that's other departments that could utilize vehicles within the carpool setup.
Why wouldn't you just keep it within the department that's using it then? Why would you switch departments?
Council President, I think the vehicle review committee needs to get a list of all the vehicles and vehicle requests so they can review it between now and the budget intro.
That's up to you. I mean, we've always requested it. I just don't know why we don't get it. Anything else, Mr. Sackett? You good on that?
Council President, on different sub-account,
Go ahead, bud.
042,
Education training?
sure. $1,500, we only used 158 last year. We anticipating something, and the prior years were a little less than 500, and for 16, for year 2016. And for the year 2017, it was $545. Now, last year was only $158, and we're still looking for an amount probably 7, 8 times that. Is there any reason?
Where is he?
42.
On page 43, sub-account 042.
So that went down $500 from, the request, all right, okay. I'll recommend, right. Well, the good thing is, we get training for nothing through the DCA. But if you want an extra license, the course is around $800. So,
So you have a projection of using, is there somebody that needs it, or?
and then I did an Excel course last year, actually, so, just to, get a little familiar with the computer. So,
So was that Excel course part of the $158?
I think it was, yes.
So putting that to the side, you may have been at zero. I don't know how much an
Right.
Excel course
You know,
costs. But
the whole thing, like I said, I anticipate getting busy, so, I mean, we have this budget for a plumber 20 hours. What happens if I need a plumber 40 hours, in the future? What happens then?
Well, we have a cover, though. Like, if we needed somebody else, we've had an agreement with Denville. There was a written agreement there with a prior construction official who had retired. And I think we continued that with the new construction official in Denville. We help out each other in a case of an overage or influx of this. But, Mr. Christopherson, prior to you coming here, I know you keep saying when we get busy, Pondview had originally had some permits out there, Fox Hills and all these other developments that were taking place. There's always been a busy component in Rockaway Township.
Okay.
That project goes away, then another project comes. So it's almost like you lease a vehicle, and then when it expires of that lease, you trade it and you get another vehicle. You're still having the continuing of the same payment. Well, because of the construction that's going on, you're still potentially having that same level of construction that's taking place. Just that project's done.
It was just a scenario, like, with the shared service is like, say you're gonna do some work, sir, and then that way Denville would inspect it. That was the agreement, because you're not allowed to be inspected by us.
I understand that under 523,
Right.
but we also did other things as well when we had some issues to cover. Whether you were absent, you couldn't be there, we didn't have a subcode that could sign off on a CO, and there was an urgency for it. I mean, there's a whole host of things that are there.
Okay.
But, I hate to ask a stupid question. Were you involved at all with the preparing of this budget? No?
Yes,
Okay,
I was involved.
okay.
Don't we leave some money in there, because by contract, these employees are allowed to have education if they ask for a new class that they need? We have to leave some money, because contractually, they're allowed to go to pay for their education.
I don't think Mr. Palumbo was talking about taking all the money out of,
it was
it's just a question.
It's if he talked about an Excel, aside from that Excel course, which I'm sure you're not going to take again this year, if that number was zero, then you're looking at 3 years of one under 500, one 545, a zero, and now we're asking for 1,500. It's a 3-year experience, and the closest you come to that number is maybe.
Aren't we just have $1,000 in that line item?
Well, he was requesting 15.
Yeah, I was asking him why the 1,500. I know you reduced it to 1,000. I'm just trying to get a mindset why we're asking, or seems to be asking for so much more.
But I think the main question, though, is are you, like, when we ask Mrs. Ferrante about certain things and their certifications that come up to maintain their licenses, is there something that you have already projected to come up with the 1,500? And we know that the Excel is already done, you're not using it again, but
I have yeah, and then there's electrical courses, UCC sponsored courses, and, we just want to be able to provide, if we get approached by our subcode officials, a needed course, a course on foundations, a course on,
and I'm going to do
new building materials,
right.
so that we, remain competitive.
And Mr. Christopherson, a lot of these officials, they work in other towns?
Just the one does.
So we don't know if that individual has education that they could utilize that from the other town that they work in? There's always that possibility that there's other
There's a
avenues
possibility, sure.
of revenue where they can
Right.
achieve that education through another municipality as well. right?
It does seem strange, Council President, that we would be paying for training for employees that are not exclusively employees of the township. It does sound like we would be risking subsidizing other towns' employees.
I mean, we could basically be training an employee for the town that they're working in.
Correct. That's concerning.
Is there any other, I'm sorry, go ahead,
Yeah,
Mr. Palumbo.
I have a,
Hey, Mrs.
when, is he done?
You know,
Go ahead.
things going, look, go ahead,
Just
Vic,
real-
I'm sorry.
Just one other thing, I'm just, under office equipment, 16 and 17, it was 0. 18, adopted a budget of 1,000. They expended exactly half of that. You're asking for 1,000 again, and just respectfully, like, the mindset, this what-if mindset, I mean, we extrapolate that, our budget would be like $80 million instead of $39 million.
Understood.
So there has to be a reasonableness of expectation. And why I'm bringing up 042 and 053, it seems sometimes in your line items there is not a reasonableness of expectation of what you're going to spend. The what-if mentality, I mean, again, we can take that to an nth degree and have a budget of 80 million instead of 39 or 40 million. But being specific to 053, after having 2 years of 0 and then $500, what is needed for the 1,000 for this coming year?
Conference table and chairs?
Those, on that specific line item was included handhelds for the subcode officials to connect with the SDL.
Is that something, is that an app they can add to their phone? Because we have cell phones here.
For that department, there's two.
One's a flip phone and I have an iPhone.
That's township paid?
Yes,
You use it for your personal?
I have a personal, yes, I never use it for anything but the
And
pictures here and there.
we are trying to SDL, get that. The SDL program that we have is when the inspectors are out on the road and we know where they are. If another job comes up or a request for inspection, we can text them or email them and say, hey, go over to this job, and they can pull up the paperwork from the SDL program that we have.
Is there GPS capability on that?
On the SDL?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Right.
you can monitor the employee?
I don't know about that.
When you get a second.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith, go
That's
ahead.
okay. I have a question on 029 contractual fees. In 16, we spent 2,600, 17, 2,200, nothing last year, and we asked for 15,000, and we were recommended 13,000. Do you have specific contracts in mind to utilize that funding?
That is the SDL contract. SDL is the permitting
Yeah,
contract.
okay, so
Permitting program.
you know you're going to spend that much?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then on 236, when we were just discussing this, for plumbing inspections, the $2,000, we've never used that. I think we'd use it in 2016, only because of the plumbing inspectors hiring or hourly salary or being shared. Have we ever used since that person's been full-time? 236?
Oh, go ahead, tell me.
Like again, in the past, I remember we would have people cover. 236. Go down to 236.
Oh, sorry,
That's okay.
I had it covered before.
So what was the question?
You haven't
I think
you haven't used the $2,000.
I think I understand it, so that is that extra money needed if we, not for vacations and such.
But why not for any other official?
That's on the line above it.
Yeah, it is.
16,000 for them? So we have, 3 people that are capable of doing building inspections. We have 2 people. Do you have a subcode for building?
I am.
You can do approvals on plans and stuff like that? And, high rise and all that kind of stuff?
We're a class 1 town.
So you've only used 11,000 out of the $16,000. Are you planning more vacations for? What would be the need for the additional $4,000? 4,700.
Is that just building there?
Well, you got fire, building, and electrical.
Electrical, yeah. So, electrical we have to pay, because no one has that license but our subcode.
And our fire guy is only part-time, so,
Right.
I mean, why would we, if he goes on, he's part-time anyway, so what's the difference?
Correct.
So between really, building and electrical, which are part-time, it seems that we pay other fees. Like if they exceed their hours, do we then pay them out of this amount?
Yes, because it's not budgeted in the salary lines. And then also if we need to pull in somebody else if there's vacation time, if that person's on vacation. If, we used 11,300 last year.
Yeah, you're asking for another $5,000
Right.
more, almost.
Right, and then we have we have 345 units coming online.
Well, like I said, we went through it. You're going through
Right.
projects, and then you come up with a new project.
What old projects?
Well, like when I say
Right, what
Bonner
old,
Park, you have Fox Hills that came in there. You have Lennar that's
right,
almost getting built out. Pondview starting.
right.
I don't know, what's the second phase of Pondview of how many, it's 1,050 homes, right? Roughly, or units that are there. So it just seems that there's a cycling of these projects that are going on and new ones coming up.
Right, so I don't,
So this hasn't stopped. Like last year, these projects were going. So you only expended last year of 11,000 rather than the 16,000.
yeah.
So what's the difference in the increase of the $5,000?
Would you like to put in 12? And then what happens if we go over?
Allison, can you project how many are coming on all the time, or is it a projected, estimated guess?
Yes.
Based on what you spent with a percentage of all the new that you're coming on that you can't guess, but we can't overexpend the budget, and if we don't spend it, it goes back to the town anyway.
No, I didn't just hear that. Is there any other questions?
No.
240, go ahead.
What facility are we renting, 240?
Oh, it's the township.
What is it?
Here. There, go ahead, Mrs. Palmer. We talked about that yesterday with the water utility. Self-funding.
Maybe
It's a,
We're gonna rent maybe office space for the utility to offset some costs.
Right,
okay.
exactly the same concept. So we're taking the space that they take up, and we're charging them for that rent to offset the fees that we charge the developers.
Okay. You know it now, I asked you, didn't know.
And does it square footage?
We base it, yeah, square footage.
And is that something we can, when we were talking about the water department, is that something we can do with this budget now?
With the water department?
Yes.
To basically charge the water department? I suppose we could, sure.
Because when we
It's not
talked
too late.
about it, not all the users are all on city water,
Mhm.
so, I think it would just be somewhat fair,
So,
self-funding.
right, so what we would do is increase the amount in the water utility to charge it for, let's just say it, if it's a quarter of this, whatever it is, half of it, $8,000. And then that would be basically revenue into the general fund. But if that's your wish, I would, a motion to.
Yeah, I don't know, can we do that now, because the water department's not on this?
I don't know.
We're talking about the budget, I don't think so. I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we'll hold that, because we don't have that on the agenda, and it's a special meeting, so we can't alter from that.
It's fine.
Yeah, but I'll, well, we can't really make a motion on something, because that's not what we put on the agenda and we noticed about.
Yeah, we talked about water yesterday, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the next meeting that we have, that for whatever we're gonna do of action,
On the night of introduction?
no,
Okay,
there's gonna be another meeting,
in between.
yes. Okay, is there any other questions?
Council President, since there's this discussion about introduction, just so that everybody's aware, can we just have a brief conversation about what the time frame?
Well, let's just make sure that we're complete here. I don't wanna go into that discussion until we're done. I mean, nobody else has any questions, right, on, the construction? I think we got a lot. I don't know if there's anything you wanna add, Mr. Christopherson or Mrs. Fronte?
Nope.
You guys are good? Then we're gonna be done with that. And then we can get that quick answer. We're gonna take just a quick 3-5 minute break, right? So Mrs. Palmieri, I think what Councilman Jeniak was saying is that the budget introduction, there is an extension of a time. The 29th of March, I believe, is the
Correct.
time frame, but it could be the next regular meeting after,
Correct.
which would be
The
April
next
9th.
regularly scheduled meeting is, if that's the 9th, then that's right.
Or
the
it could
schedule.
be the meeting prior to the 29th, which would be the 26th,
Right, right, exactly.
to do that. So
To
we
do the
have,
introduction.
we have 2 dates of potentiality
Yeah.
because of the latitude that the state has given municipalities
Yes,
for the introduction of a budget.
yes.
So, Councilman Jeniak, that's what I've been informed. Mrs. Palmieri concurs with that. Is there anything that you wanted to add?
Yes, I just wanted to confirm that to meet the state's deadline for introduction, we have until the April 9th meeting.
Well, yeah, that's the latest that we can do it because of the extension of what the state has given us, or we can do it earlier on the 26th before the 29th deadline. That's been extended.
You're right about the.
Nothing bars us from doing it sooner.
Right, but the latest date is April 9th, that's the deadline.
And there's no, Mrs. Palmieri,
Yes.
there's no penalty, there's no nothing, it's just,
No, because if you read the local finance notice, there's an asterisk next to the date, and it says you must adopt or must introduce, prior to April 29th or the next regularly scheduled meeting thereafter.
you mean March
Did
29th?
I say April? I meant March, sorry.
Are we taking a break?
Yeah.
Like
And then,
now,
Council
or
President, then
is
the
it like to
adoption
keep
of
us
the
down?
budget is April 30th, or the next regular meeting, which in our case is May 14th.
So is there too much time between
Uh,
April 6th?
I believe that's correct, but let's get forward with taking a break. Is there any other questions that you have?
It has to be at least 28.
Are there any other questions that you have, Mr. Jeniak?
That's what I'm saying, at least
No.
28.
Okay.
So if but let's
No,
put
we're just gonna go into a small.
This is when we wanted to do it the 26th. But if we do it for, when is the next meeting? Is the next meeting April 9th? Okay, so if this is April 9th.
You know what,
Because
And then
Ken built them.
this would be,
yeah.
May what?
You know what, I don't know. You know
Are
what?
we in recess?
Yes, we are.
14th, is that,
Mr. Quinn, we're in recess. You still there?
how many days is that?
Okay, I'm gonna run. I
I'm
just
still here, I know you're in recess.
Thank you.
The 9th to May 14th.
thought I'd mention it to you.
Well, that's 28 days.
You gonna chop out my library?
Hey, I'm trying to.
You're good, right? This is yeah, that's what this means. You don't have to, you have to do it, that's the deadline, or the next meeting after. So, did he just say that we're not gonna have another meeting? We're just gonna do, I got the impression he was saying, we'll discuss this again at the next council meeting. No?
He's
He wants
gonna
to-
make another special meeting. He's gonna introduce here, John's gonna introduce on the 26th.
So did I.
And get this in.
So did I.
Otherwise, we're gonna need more money for the temporary budget.
That's the first time. Yeah. But then you know what you do? They're gonna say no.
Brian texted me,
Just
said it looks good. Yeah, I think Pat had it on.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard him say that we have a meeting on the 26th.
That's the one I wanted to introduce.
introduce. You can't adopt.
Introduce on the 26th.
Yes.
And then, since the 29th is the deadline, the next
Meeting
council
after
meeting,
is
scheduled meeting after that is April
9th. That's what we're talking about.
Which he would then.
Then they would adopt, no, then they would
adopt.
introduce.
No,
Introduce.
He wants to move it from the 26th to April 19th.
Everything gets delayed. The whole intro and adopt.
28 days.
Yeah, you
So he would not
have
adopt
to,
our
you have to,
budget until 5/14.
May 14th.
You have, after you introduce.
If he does what he said, we would introduce on April 9th and adopt on May 14th.
Oh, we gotta wait that whole.
Yeah, we'd
Have to wait a whole month.
March 26th.
I'd rather do it prior, yeah.
We'd rather do it.
I mean, that's usually we adopt in March and, introduce in March and adopt in
But
May.
these are,
Oh, they're off?
no, the recorder's on.
Whatever.
So you
I'm
can
not
hear.
saying anything.
This,
No, we just
you
said
can
what
just
we wanted to do.
pull this off.
Here's what we requested them to have an introduction March 26th.
Right.
And adoption of April 25th.
Which is consistent with other years.
Which is what we've always done. But
Yeah.
now he wants it
So the police starts at, 58, right? 57?
56.
56. Overtime.
So did you put them off hold?
Yep.
Mr. Quinn, Mr. Jeniak, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Thank you. Next we have, the police. Continue, John?
Chief Mark McFarland, for those of you that know me.
Microphone, chief.
Good evening, I'm Chief Mark McFarland.
Microphone, a little bit better, chief.
Good evening, I'm Chief Mark McFarland of the Rockaway Township Police Department, for those of you that don't know me. I'd like to start off the 2019 budget request for the police department, going over wages and overtime. For 2019, I'm requesting a total of, for regular wages of $6,280,294, with an overtime of $325,000 budgeted. In this amount, I'm also requesting the increase of the department by 2 officers that were deleted last year. One of these officers would be assigned as an SRO in our middle school, the Copeland School, which we're currently in negotiations with the Board of Education to split the cost with the Board of Education for that cost of the officer. And the $325,000 overtime is an increase due to the recent overtime costs that we went through last year.
The audio is cutting out.
Well, for instance, chief, like right now, the 2 police officers that we have, are they on overtime, third party?
Yes, they are.
So,
They're on straight overtime.
and because of the venue that we have right now and being a budget meeting, and I'm sure you're aware of it, why 2 officers?
Because Mayor Puzio stated that any of the current council meetings or special meetings would require 2 officers.
So the mayor is the creation for the overtime?
He ordered the overtime, yes.
The mayor's the creation of the
He
overtime?
ordered that there be 2 officers present. If there's not enough officers to properly staff the road, officers are called in on overtime.
So then the mayor also allows officers to come off the road rather than patrol our community?
No, sir. They only come off the road if there's enough officers to cover the 4 districts and have a cover district. If there's additional officers, the officers are assigned up here.
How many officers do we have on right now?
Sergeant, how many officers do we have on right now? 4.
And the 4 are on,
Patrolmen,
the
and
4 on the road?
And we have 2 sergeants.
Now, the 2 new officers we have, right, you just said that we hired
No, I'm looking for an additional 2 officers.
for additional 2?
We currently have 4 officers in the police academy.
We can't hear you, chief, you can just, can you
We
pull the
currently-
microphone to you, so it's more
We
comfortable?
currently have 4 officers in the Morris County Police Academy. 1 officer who is already trained and a PTC number is going through his field officer training. And he'll be done with that in about 2.5 weeks.
So the 5 that we have, though, it filled those who had retired,
That's correct.
so we still have, is it 53? 47
We
off, what do we?
have 49 right now. I'm looking to increase the department to 51, to have 2 additional officers.
And in 2018, how many officers do we have?
2018, we had 52.
Council President,
Go ahead.
I'm looking at page 56. And I'm looking at the FT column for 2018, and it says 53 full-time and 6 part-time.
We don't have any part-time
There's
officers.
no part-time police officers.
Part-time employees.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It says 53 full-time. We just heard 52. So which number is correct?
For 2018?
2018, we had 49 officers.
49 officers, right here.
to contain more than just officers, right? So what is the total head count?
Including the clerical
Well,
staff and the.
Councilman
crossword
Jeniak,
guards?
could you be more specific? Are you looking at actual police officers or employees?
Are you speaking to me?
Yes.
I'm looking at page 56.
I'm asking you, are you looking for the total count of police officers or employees in the police department?
Full-time employees on the police budget in front of us.
Are you looking for police officers or entire amount of employees?
I said it 3 times now, full-time employees.
Nope. I'm asking you one more time really simply. Are you looking for police officers or all full-time employees?
All employees.
Including the command staff.
So he's including the steno. That's what he said.
There's a column that says FT 2018. You follow it down at the bottom and it says 53. 53 FT, 6 PT. 2018. Page 56, 2018 column.
So, Chief, is that 53 police officers?
That is 53 total full-time employees, sworn personnel and non-sworn, such as secretaries.
So, it's only, so 49. So,
49 would be the total for the sworn personnel of all ranks.
okay.
Okay, so having established that, I heard the chief say 52. What does that 52 number refer to?
No, 51. I would like to increase the department back up to 51 officers, full-time, sworn officers.
So moving to the 2019 column, I see 55 FT and 6 PT.
What
Yes,
page are you
but
on,
that's-
Jeremy?
that still includes the non-sworn personnel, such as the secretary, the secretarial staff.
Page 56, far right, 2019 column.
Included in the 55 are 4 non-police personnel.
It's the 2 records clerk, his secretary, and the BP clerk.
So, Chief, if you're looking for,
For us to all find the same.
if you're looking for 2 additional officers, wouldn't you have a reduction in overtime?
Yes,
And is your overtime reflecting that?
with it, considering that we were $55,000 over last year, I'm hoping that by hiring the 2 officers, don't forget, one will assist with the overtime, the other one will spend most of their time in the middle school, that with the increase in the overtime and the new officer, we should be able to come in under budget for 2019.
Well, don't you think, based on what you just told me, the mayor, we're having overtime right now, or whatever it may be, and then having the multiple amount of officers in the past, that you authorized in the mayors or mayors prior, I don't see that being something, I mean, you're gauging that in your total amount of overtime that was expended in 2018, would that be correct?
Correct.
So, do you anticipate having 5 or 6 or 8 officers or 2 more officers in meetings moving forward in 2019?
Hoping not, but as I said, the current mayor is still mandating 2 officers be assigned up here.
Is that in writing or in verbal?
That's in writing.
Weren't these officers at the request of the former president of the council to have officers at the meeting?
Mrs. Seeger, I get you throwing somebody under the bus or trying to do something. I don't think
I
it's
think
necessary.
you're trying to say the mayor is doing this expense.
I'm not.
It's not him.
I'm not. The chief is. The chief just said that the mayor did it.
No, you said it 4 times.
Council President, just for the record.
I'll say it 5.
Council President asked the mayor to ensure that the meetings were safe and that the police department did its job in preserving decorum, which the police department failed to do for much of last year.
So you have, you're requesting the 302,000 is what we had for, overtime. You expended 357,000. How much of that do you contribute to the additional, police presence at the meetings?
Roughly, it'd be about 18,000. And that's also not counting providing security, which we have to, for the township courts.
The courts? But I thought you scheduled the police officers around their shifts to handle the courts, like detectives and...
We do, but if they're on assignments or otherwise busy, once again, we have to call officers in for overtime.
Is that frequent?
Infrequent, I would say. Anytime that we can staff it with either a sergeant or a detective or two detectives, we do so. We looked into, myself and the judge, we discussed attempting to hire part-time officers. However, it wasn't an option with the current collective bargaining agreement.
Now, when you were talking about that collective bargaining agreement that you have, that we executed, was that a conversation that you had with the schools too, that you didn't invite the council to be a participant of?
No, that was a meeting.
So you didn't tell the schools that you could not hire SROs, class threes?
Yes, I did. With the current collective bargaining agreement, you cannot.
So they were aware of it, right?
The school was aware of it, correct?
Go ahead, Mr. Palumbo.
Do you know what the township's portion of the cost for an SRO would be, Chief?
Right now, we're looking for it used to be a split of 50%. The Board of Education has budgeted $70,000 towards the officer's salary and benefits.
Okay, do you have a raw number? Are you saying it used to be 50%? Is that?
It used to be 50% back when we initially had the SRO. The program was ended in the school year 2010, 2011.
So who ended it? I'm sorry, Mr. Palumbo.
No, a new follow-up. But we don't know. It used to be 50%, but we haven't costed it out that it would still be that 50%. In other words,
It would be close. The Board of Education has budgeted $70,000.
Okay, so you're saying the township's portion would be close to 70,000 also?
With benefits, yes.
But that's, Chief, why wouldn't you have, if you had an officer coming in at their first step, why wouldn't they be utilized? That would be almost a real minimum cost.
Well, because we would want to have an experienced officer dealing with the children.
So we don't have experienced officers when we hire them?
They have the experience of going through the police academy. It takes several years for the officer to become seasoned. Also, don't forget, as an SRO, you also go through the additional training. And what we want is, we want these officers to learn how to be police officers out on the street as patrolmen first, before we start assigning them to any specialized duties.
But they're not really patrolling the streets, they're being inside the school. So if you had a new officer that just came and got hired out of the academy at a lower amount, but you trained them through the SRO, which is specifically for schools, not on the street, well, why wouldn't we accept that training for a lower paid officer under their first or second or third step?
Because it doesn't make sense, Mr. President. We want these officers to learn how to do the job out on the street first before we're putting them in the schools.
It's almost a 50-50 split.
Go ahead, Mr. Palumbo.
I'm sorry, Chief. I'm going to double back a little bit. You said, what was it, Copeland used to have an SRO back in 2010?
Correct. Before the school year 2010-2011, when the Board of Education stopped funding their share, we had an SRO assigned full-time over to Copeland School.
And for how many years was that, do you know? Like for how many year period up into?
I believe it's from roughly 2004, 2005 to 2010, 2011.
So maybe 6 years, maybe
Yes.
7 years here as an SRO, and they were assigned, or he or she was assigned to Copeland.
They were assigned to Copeland School when the school was in session. Anytime such as the spring breaks, summer breaks, Christmas breaks, they'd be assigned back into patrol to supplement the patrol force.
And during the school day, what, besides providing armed security, correct? What would be some of their duties? Is it just armed security while they're in there?
No, they'd be responsible for any calls for service that would go on in the school. They'd basically be also engaged in continuous public or community policing with the children and the school staff. And basically, for an SRO, they're putting a face to the police uniform. And they're trying to develop a bond with the children so that the kids feel more comfortable dealing with an officer that they see every day and that they interact with every day. But once again, they're also still full functioning police officers. If they have to take action, they take action. If there's a problem in the school, let's say with harassment or bullying or, criminal mischief, those officers would be there and that handle the reports and the investigation.
And I guess maybe this is not a question for you, but I assume, or maybe you do know, why did the school board decide to pull out of that? Do you have any idea?
At that time, they stopped funding the SRO, and they also laid off the majority of their unarmed security guards. Each one of the grammar schools had a security guard at their front door. For budgetary reasons, they got rid of all the unarmed security guards, and they stopped paying for the SRO.
I think you heard her.
Wasn't that when the economy tanked around that year?
07.
Council
President.
But I believe our mayor said it was more important for education than security. Do we have a contract between the school and the township back in that era for the services that we supplied to them for the receipt of the funds?
Yes, we did.
Can you provide that to us?
Yes.
Monday?
Sure.
I'm sorry, Mr. Palumbo. Oh, you know what? Jeremy did say something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If he, go ahead, Jeremy.
Council President, I don't know if I missed it, but was the proposed agreement that was discussed at the Tuesday council meeting, or for the first time brought to the council's attention by the superintendent, has that been distributed to the council yet?
Chief?
I didn't hear him.
The proposal that we had no idea about, we still haven't received anything. Is that something that's been passed around?
The shared services agreement.
No, it is not.
No, we just received it this week, and it will be we planned on putting on the next agenda for discussion and maybe possibly passing a resolution, depending on passing the two new officers.
Council President, if it's in the receipt of the administration, why hasn't it been distributed to the council?
Because it's being reviewed by the attorney and administration.
So we have an agreement,
No, we are working on an agreement.
so you don't have an agreement.
Just say yes.
No,
or
we do not.
It's simple. Do you have an agreement or no?
No.
I guess not a confirmed agreement, no.
Well,
Can I
no,
ask-
well, no agreement is confirmed until the council votes on it, and the council can't vote on an agreement it doesn't have before it.
I have a question.
Jeremy, if Mrs. Smith can just fill in real quick on a question.
You just said that we can't sign the agreement until we approve the two officers, but the chief just said that it's going to be a seasoned officer. So what does one thing have to do with the other?
Go ahead, answer.
Because the new officer will replace the seasoned officer. If you understand.
If I may follow up,
The new
Council
officer,
President.
once he's trained, put him into the patrol rotation, once again, so that he learns how to be a police officer. And we would take an officer that's already experienced, put him, if he does not already have the SRO training, some of the officers do, that seasoned officer would go into the school as the SRO.
So you don't want to bring your staff below the current level?
Correct.
I understand.
So it's costing us more money. So really, we're getting 70K, but we're paying the 70,000 to offset the additional cost for that officer that's an SRO. We're also bringing in another officer to cover for that one not being around, so it's even more money than 50%, no? I mean, because you're creating staff levels that are going lower than what you originally anticipated. So if you're gonna, you have 49 now, you wanna bring in 51, but you gotta take one off of there to be in the school, and the other one to offset that one being in the school. Is that accurate?
The way I see it is that I'm returning the patrol officers back to the level that they were at.
That's not what I asked you.
Yes, and hopefully it would reduce
Mr.
the
Seeger,
overtime.
if the chief can answer, please?
Yes, you're
That's all.
correct.
Okay, that's all. I mean, that was.
However, like I said,
Council President?
I feel it's more important that we have an officer who has not been in the school since 2011 in there protecting the children.
No,
I feel it's well worth it.
I understand. It was just a simple yes or no question that I didn't hear from you, that's all. Councilman Jeniak?
Yeah, if we could just refer back to the Tuesday meeting where what we were told was a proposed agreement was presented to us by the superintendent in person. If everyone were to recall, following that, my specific question to Mayor Puzio, who I understand is not with us this evening, was there anything budgeted for that proposed agreement in this budget that is before us? And I think I asked it two or three different ways of Mayor Puzio, and each answer from the mayor was that there was nothing budgeted here, and yet everything we've just heard seems to contradict that.
No, I didn't hear that. I heard him say that it was budgeted because he had two new officers in there, and that he said it was budgeted and that we would be discussing it tonight. That's what I recall.
I do too, actually. I do too.
Just quickly on the SRO.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
So they're getting about $140,000, I guess, or 70 from the school, 70 from us in benefits.
And then hiring another officer.
What, and then when they go back to us, what is their equivalent, like, rank? You know, I'm just looking at, are they equivalent to a lieutenant?
No,
What-
they're a patrol officer,
Patrol?
just a regular police officer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if I'm not familiar with your, I call it a bidding procedure, so an SRO, would it be offered to the sergeants? Would it be offered to the lieutenants?
No, it'd be only.
No, I just want to
Yeah,
make sure.
it'd only be a patrol officer's position.
Right. Okay, so,
And if, of course, the normal course, the officer could be promoted out of there, to become a sergeant.
Then we'd have to get another SRO to fill that position?
Not necessarily.
You can just put a
If there's
regular.
additionally trained officers, you just,
But you just got done telling me that the training for an SRO to go into the schools from them being on the street. So if you pull an SRO out because they go for promotion, you wouldn't want to deprive them of being promoted.
correct. So we would just put
Or
another
that
officer
officer retires.
that has
Chief,
the
if I may,
SRO training.
Chief, if I may, and if that officer retires, or that, let's say the officer goes on vacation, that's the SRO.
Mhm.
What is the backup plan? What's the plan B to fill that void?
Well,
They're
first of
paying
all,
for an SRO.
the officers are going to be allowed to take his vacation. But once again, if we have additional officers trained as
So
SROs.
now you're telling me that an officer can't take their selected vacation while they're working the school year?
No, I just stated that they'd be entitled to take their time off.
So,
Just as a teacher has personal days, they can take off from the school.
sure, but then if you have the school paying for a service from you, an SRO, like we went through this with the mall, they were paying for officers to be inside the mall, which they weren't getting, so they cut out the contract and renegotiated to a much lower level. If the school is paying for an SRO, and that SRO goes on vacation, let's say, the SRO, let's say a veteran wants to be an SRO. Would you deprive a veteran to be an SRO?
No, I would not.
Now, if that veteran goes on leave, who fills that person's spot? And I would imagine it would be another SRO because they're paying for an SRO, not just for a regular street-trained officer.
Correct.
So what would you do?
We would either assign another SRO, or we will work it into the agreement with the school stating that the officer will not be replaced. It just says during the normal course of business in the police department, officers are allowed to take their time off.
I can't hear.
During the normal course of a school year, teachers are allowed to have sick days and personal days.
I'm just saying now, if I want a replacement of the same value, you just told me there's a difference in the value of an SRO versus a regular street-trained officer out of the academy, seasoned, is much different than being inside of a school. you're trained much differently in addition to what you've already trained in the academy, plus your
Correct.
experience on the road, right?
Correct.
So I'm not getting the same amount out of my buck because I'm getting somebody with less experience in a school. Now, hold on. Now, let's say there's an incident in that school, and you have an individual that's an SRO that's on vacation,
Mhm.
and you then implement your own policy and put in a regular police officer, and there's an issue that happens and it's a bad result. Could we be exposed to some additional litigation because you didn't put an SRO back in?
That'd be
filling
a
the void?
question to ask an attorney.
I'm asking you if you've asked those questions.
It's in the agreement that they're holding us harmless and the school, we're holding the school harmless and they're holding us harmless.
How good is
Can-
that's not.
Can I,
I thought there was no agreement,
Can
Council
I,
President.
Go ahead. You
Can
know,
I-
Mrs. Smith, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I just want, Chief, are you going to train more than one officer as an
Yes, we are.
That answers all the
We already have,
questions, thank you.
We already have officers trained.
Okay, so how many do we have
Why wouldn't you
trained?
say that you would put in another SRO rather than you would put a regular officer in? I asked you that in 3 different areas. Why wouldn't you mention that?
What?
What I just asked you. You told me that you'd put another officer in there.
Yes,
Not
another,
another SRO.
if, we're putting an officer in the school, he's gonna be, or she is gonna be a trained SRO.
But you already have. They're not going to get additional training now. We already have trained SROs
Correct.
in our police department.
It's just that they are not assigned to the school, nor is the Board of Education paying anything towards them. They have the training, they are not assigned to the school.
How many SROs do we have now?
2. I should say 2 officers that are trained to be SROs. We do not have anyone assigned as an SRO.
So we can assign one of the 2 that we have?
If we choose to, yes. But once again, you're taking that personnel from the patrol division, lower
Well,
their
then you
staff.
can just hire one police officer then, right? Why hire an SRO when we have one in-house?
We're not hiring an SRO, we're hiring a police officer. That police officer will replace the officer that's trained as an SRO to go into the school.
You're asking for 2 new police officers. It has nothing to do with the school.
Correct.
I thought that was the whole reasoning for the hiring of the 2 police officer, which was
He needs more staff.
even the superintendent said that you were going to hire to be an SRO.
Because the police department can't afford to give up an SRO without hiring a new officer, because they're understaffed. That's what the chief is saying, am I correct?
Correct.
So he's asking for 2 new officers, and hopefully that will help with overtime costs, and we should see a reduction.
Yeah, but he's increased it in his budget, though.
It seems to me as the overtime costs are being driven by Mayor Kuzia.
It is not being driven by Mayor Puzzio.
Well,
I think that's what we just heard the chief tell us.
Mayor Puzzio and the chief decides how many officers are to be at the meeting at the request of the township council.
we didn't request that.
Mr. Jeniak never requested officers here?
I didn't. Mr. Jeniak's not the president anymore, so
Well, then you don't want him here anymore?
I don't make that decision whether they're here or not.
Oh, okay. I'll let the staff know.
That's your decision.
Council President, just a couple questions. One about the agreement. So there used to be an agreement in place for about a 7-year period.
Roughly, correct.
Okay. And this agreement, and then I heard, I guess, budgetary reasons. In 2010, it was discontinued approximately? Because
Correct.
of-
The Board of Education stopped funding their share of the officer.
Okay, so the Board of Ed is the one that pulled out of the agreement, and I guess,
Correct.
is that agreement on a year-to-year basis, do you know? And can either party pull out at will, or?
Truthfully, sir, I haven't seen the agreement.
We're going to get that
Please,
Monday, right? The agreement?
Council President, please.
Yeah.
So, for that length of time, but the township's piece in it, I'm sorry, Chief, how long have you been chief?
4 years.
Okay, so the township was still willing to participate. It was the Board of Ed who pulled out in approximately 2010 or 11 after about 7 years of the program being implemented.
Correct.
and it was budgetary reasons, but you also said they pulled unarmed security guards out of the 5 elementary schools?
Correct. Each one of the elementary schools in the township had an unarmed security guard at their entrance, who also did patrolled the corridors.
And those unarmed security guards, they were paid for by the Board of Ed, not the township?
Correct.
Okay. To your knowledge, it's been 9 years, I guess, since this has been proposed to do this, am I correct? For the SRO piece of it, right? I mean, it's about 8 years, maybe?
Correct.
Okay, so for 8 years, this hasn't been proposed. Do you know if the...
Last year it was.
For 7 years, it wasn't proposed?
Correct.
Last year,
Okay, so I lopped a year off of it.
Roughly, Mr. Plumbo,
Yeah.
when I became chief, I was concerned, I always wanted to get an SRO back into the schools.
You became chief in 15 or 14?
15, correct.
Okay.
October 15.
Was that proposed here in 15 or 16?
I spoke to the superintendent at that time, I believe it was Dr. McGann, and he said that they would consider it.
Okay. Do you know in this line, since the paid SROs, the shared cost of the SRO, do you know if the Board of Ed has put back in the 5 elementary schools the unarmed security?
They have not.
They have not. Okay. So,
they upgraded their getting in the buildings.
Yes, correct. Their physical security they've upgraded, but for having an armed guard there, no.
okay, I understand that. So, do you know, I wouldn't be privy to this, do you know if they have any plans, it's not saying turn back the clock, but to provide the security, or same type of security, included the SRO that was in the schools for 6-7 years, do you know if they've budgeted to put, along with the SRO, if it gets approved and put in, do you know if they're looking to put in the elementary schools?
They have not informed me of that.
They have not. So we're only going to go back to essentially security for Copeland under this. And I know this is not under your jurisdiction,
Correct.
I understand.
I would like to see truthfully, I would like to see armed officers in each one of the schools, but realistically, I'd like to start off with getting an officer back into Copeland and see where that takes us.
Okay. And just one last set of questions, and for anyone who can answer there, Chief, I'm not, we were told by Dr. McLaughlin they had an agreement, or they had put forth an agreement, I think that was Tuesday, he spoke at our meeting here. Would that agreement be similar to, or just mirror what was going on for 6 or 7 years? It was just a standard, just to replace, because you're saying it was 50% back then, right?
Correct.
And now they've put forth, do you know if that agreement, and for anyone who can answer who would be knowledgeable on this, do you know if that agreement was written up as 50% or a hard number?
The initial agreement was 50% Board of Education, 50% the police department.
Okay, but to your knowledge, anyone over there, whoever can answer it, this agreement doesn't say 50%. This agreement is a hard number they're putting up at 70,000.
That I don't know. I haven't seen the agreement.
Yeah, well, Dr. McLaughlin made the presentation. I'm just asking administration. Does the agreement, Chief has said that the last agreement was 50%, and my understanding it was 70,000. Do we know if that agreement has a percentage in it or a hard number?
I looked at it quickly, and it did not have a percentage, and the resolution they passed didn't have a number in it. So I actually have a couple of questions about it, so that's why I have to go back to them.
So the resolution that the Board of Ed passed doesn't have either a hard number or percentage for the cost share between the two entities?
I think the resolution is to enter an agreement with us, and we're working out the details. So I don't know what their budget says. I don't even know if their budget's finalized.
Did you ever have any communications with them, Mrs. Singer?
Yes.
But you didn't ask any of those questions?
Yes.
And they didn't answer any of those questions?
They had to go back to their board.
So they did go back to the board and pass a resolution?
And I haven't been here since then.
He did 70K.
He did, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Dr. McLaughlin,
But he also said that we canceled the agreement.
no, Dr. McLaughlin said it was 70,000, right? At the meeting, he said it was 70,000. But that's not reflective, Mrs. Seeger, in the agreement that he gave you?
I did not see an amount. Actually, the lines were blank.
Hey, Chief, how long has this discussion's been going on with the school? I mean, it's been multiple,
As I said,
2018 to where
I
we're at.
spoke to Dr. McGann before you left, so it's been a few years,
Well, we just had the new superintendent come in June, right?
correct?
And you've had numerous conversations with them in June?
No?
I mean, from June to where we're at right now?
No.
No,
They said that you've met on multiple occasions.
yes,
So what, is it yes or no?
Not since June, but
No,
we
Can I
had
have the
since
chief
June.
answer no? That would be great. How many meetings have you had with the school?
with the superintendent, probably about 3.
And at no time you thought it was necessary to provide any information to the council?
No.
Because,
Once again, this was just an exploratory, me approaching him, asking if they would consider having financing an SRO.
but see, what you knew at the time, because a class 3 could be dedicated to the schools, which many municipalities have.
Yes,
Hold-
but you
hold on,
cannot,
Chief, let me finish. We're going through contract negotiations. And there's a stipulation in the contract, which you didn't let all the other council members know, that they can't hire, we can't put anybody in there other than a police officer. Correct?
incorrect, because I provided to Mr. Brewer, when negotiations started, a listing of my recommendations for everything in the contract. And one of the passages I put in there was requesting that either the administration and the collective bargaining unit allow the hiring not only of Class 3 specials, but also Class 2 specials.
Okay. But,
And neither side decided to act on my recommendations.
so, here we are, hold on a second, please, Mr. Jeniak. But during all of that, and we didn't go into closed session in December 11th of last year concerning contracts, if you had all of these discussions and whatnot, there could have been something that would have been raised while we were talking with labor attorneys and stuff concerning that contract prior to going to the arbitration.
As I said, Mr. Kelly, I submitted my requests and proposals to the administration for their consideration. None of them were considered.
Well, Brewer's been gone since the 31st of May of 2018.
Correct.
So somebody picked up the ball from then. And how much of that was negotiated back and forth to do that? If you already knew in June, and when you talked to Dr. McGovern before that, I don't even know if you talked to Gary Vita about that, the superintendent. But if you knew all of that going in there, why wouldn't that have been a little bit more of a raising of that? Because I'm looking at it, for the $35,000 for one Class 3, for the 70 grand, no pension, no benefits, you could not only have one, but you could have 2 armed officers in the schools. One could be a floater for the other K through 5, the 5 schools that we have, and one could be in Copeland School. So because of that conversation, or I don't even know how much you argued or discussed that as part of a negotiation with the FOP, I mean, it just seems that somebody dropped the ball where we could have got 2 guys in there, and for the 140, because you're hiring another officer in there, we could have got almost 4 Class 3s.
Correct, Mr. Kelly. If the administration and the union acted on my requests, we could have gotten it.
So the administration failed to act on your request.
Correct.
that's
Awesome.
not
Thank you, Chief.
necessarily the answer.
Thank you, Chief. It's good to know.
Council President?
But that's
Yes,
not the
that's
truth.
true. The chief said it.
Well, the chief wasn't in
Are you
negotiations.
calling the chief a liar, Mrs.
No,
Okay.
he wasn't in
Chief just said it.
negotiations. Were you, Chief? Were you in the negotiations?
Chief just said it, Mrs. Seeger. You
He
did not
does-
act upon the safety of our students and try to negotiate.
You're absolutely
Thank you, Mrs. Seeger.
incorrect.
The administrator said they didn't want Class 3, that they wanted that SRO.
You just heard the chief say that she failed to act on at the administration.
No, Chief,
No, this was, as
I just heard you,
stated,
chief.
Chief, correct.
Go ahead, Mr. Jeniak.
Council President, with regard to the contract, does the contract explicitly bar Class 3s, or is it silent on Class 3s?
Does it bar it, or is it silent on the Class 3s?
It states that in the contract, the last one I saw, I haven't seen the current one, is that the township shall not hire a part-time person to replace a full-time police officer.
Can we hire full-time? Class 3?
There's no such thing as full-time.
They're only part-time.
Only part-time.
I'm sorry, Councilman?
I'm not hearing the response.
Chief, could you repeat that in the microphone? Pull the mic close to you if you could.
The contract currently states that the township shall not hire a part-time employee to replace a full-time police officer.
Who would he be replacing, or he or she?
He would be replacing the SRO that at one time we had assigned there.
But we don't have an agreement. We've got an agreement that's been canceled by the school board, which ironically the mayor sat on at the time when that was canceled. Go ahead.
In your opinion, would the ability to have 4 armed officers in our school system provide more security than 1 armed officer?
Of course it would, but you have to remember, an armed security guard cannot take action. They're a security guard, whereas an SRO is a fully trained and empowered police officer.
So a class 3 armed officer, is my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, Chief, you know a lot better than I, is a retired police officer?
Correct.
And when you say he can't take action, he's armed. He can't discharge his firearm to protect the kids?
No, just a quick correction. You stated armed guards, security guard. Class 3 special is a special law enforcement officer. Correct.
Okay.
What you're saying now, but what you said initially, no, a
No,
security
my
guard.
initial, no, Chief, okay. My initial conversation 3 minutes ago, I was asking you about the Board of Ed putting in these unarmed security guards.
Correct.
I'm specifically talking about Class 3 retired officers that are armed. Would 4 of them provide more security for the school system than 1 SRO?
Of course.
Council President,
Jeniak, go ahead.
does the previous contract that expired have that same language?
Well, in all fairness to the chief, I mean, that's a 9-year-old contract. Chief, do you have any recollection of it is
I believe it's been generic throughout.
We're going to get
number
that
of
on
contracts.
Monday, that contract under review. The chief's going to provide it to us. So we can, in all fairness, I don't think the chief can answer that. No, he has a recollection of it. We don't have it in front of us, so rather than speculate, let's just review the document.
Now, Mr.
I would also
Council
like to
President,
add,
you're talking
Council
about the
President,
collective bargaining
during my
contract,
time
correct?
as
No,
acting
we're talking about the
mayor
one for the school.
last August and September, at no time did the chief or the administration bring any such recommendation to my attention as acting mayor.
Mr. Palumbo?
Chief, do surrounding towns, to your knowledge, in Morris County, Sussex County, whatever, do they employ the Class 3 retired officers?
Yes, they
Armed
do.
officers?
And some towns have combinations where some schools have SROs, others have the Class 3 specials, the SLEO
Neighboring town,
3s.
the borough.
Okay,
has-
thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Our neighboring town, Mr. Palumbo, the borough, our little stepbrother, they have an SRO in the high school. From a retired SRO, they got a new SRO that's
Correct.
in there right now. And also, Chief
Morris
Peppermint.
Knowles has
Well, Chief Peppermint also has a Class 3, I believe, in the elementary school.
correct. There's a full-time
Wagner
officer.
Wagner's done a lot with the middle school, Valley View, as well as Morris Knowles, correct?
Correct. He has Class 3s, and he also has the SRO in the high school.
And I believe Dover, I think Dover, the retired SRO in the borough, is he in Dover?
No, he left.
He's not in Dover?
No.
But it is common to have SROs and Class 3, where you get more security at a lesser rate, no pension, no benefits, and they only work when school is operating. When schools are closed in the summer, holidays and whatnot, they're not working. Is that accurate, Chief?
Correct.
Chief,
I mean, they've changed the law where if the Board of Education would like to hire them for school events, or if there's like dances or anything going on, they can either work overtime or adjust their schedules.
Chief, and if you know, if you don't, that's fine. Would you think the average parent with regard to the two different types of officers, and to me, the Class 3 is an officer. He's retired, but he's trained and he's armed. To the average parent, and if you can answer and you can speculate, fine. If you can't, say, Vic, I can't. Would be their first priority would be the safety and security with an armed officer, trained armed officer, as opposed to what other things the SRO may provide. Do you think the quantity of having those, as opposed to the other elements an SRO may provide that the retired officers don't, would you think that the security piece of it, when you have 4 of them, outweighs maybe the other elements that an SRO provides?
What I would like to see is, I'd like to see an SRO in Copeland, and I'd like to see possibly 2 SLEO 3s for the grammar schools, rotating through the different schools.
What's the difference of having a Class 3 that's a seasoned police officer for 25 years, rather than maybe a police officer in their 5th step? I mean, it just seems one that's retired out of 25 years is going to be more seasoned than somebody with 5 years with the same SRO training and whatnot, even though they're Class 3.
Well, that's why every SLEO 3, Class 3 special, goes to SRO training.
Do we know what a cost of one Class 3 officer would be?
$35,000
$35,000.
average. Right? Is that correct, Chief?
Correct.
Yeah. You would get a real bang for your buck.
But we're not allowed to have a Class 3 according to the,
Yes, according to a contract that was signed in December, right in the midst of the conversations that the administration was apparently having with the school board, and had not communicated same to the council, and had not included the council in any of those discussions or even awareness that those discussions were ongoing.
Well, based on what the chief said, they didn't even have the discussions with the union. Is there anything else into this? We have a couple more things to go forward. The chief's got a pretty good lengthy budget here. Can we move from this? Is there anything else? Mr. Freelander?
I'm good.
Good? Okay.
Yeah, just one thing. You gotta also take into consideration. Microphone. You gotta take into consideration that they want an SRO in Copeland. They don't wanna,
No, I don't think that's the case.
that's what he said.
Well,
He said because they do more,
hold
they're
on.
not only security, but with the training and the bonding with the students,
So you say Class 3 can't do that?
they don't do the same function. That's what
That's
the
not true.
superintendent said.
They get the same. The reason why was the SRO was because the chief informed them that he could only hire an SRO. That's the component that's missing.
That wasn't explained by the superintendent. I didn't get that impression.
Well,
That's,
I'm only going by what the chief said, because he had acknowledged to them that he can only hire an SRO, so only having one option, there is no selection.
Well, he said the SRO
also said
in
that,
Copeland and then the other ones in the elementary school.
You just heard the chief, though. I think
Yeah.
excuse me, Class 3s can be trained as SROs.
They have to be.
they have to.
I mean, Mayor Puzio's an SRO,
not-
Class 3 in Parsippany.
Which he said is different dynamic in Parsippany, but you're protecting the facility, the faculty, and the students. So I don't know where he was coming from. And also, he feels that education is more important than security. So moving on, Chief.
Okay. If you look, there's been a substantial savings in account number 026, equipment maintenance. We've gone down, the request was from 17,000 down to 15,000. That's been agreed upon to go down to 10,000. Vehicles, which is a big purchase item, we're requesting 051 requesting the replacement of 2 vehicles with 2 new patrol vehicles, Ford SUVs.
Chief, on the 051, do you recall the correspondence that you made with the Financial Review Board? You had submitted a correspondence to them not that long ago,
Mm-hmm.
and in there it talked about vehicle purchases and how you provide the Vehicle Review Committee with all of the information for those purchases.
Correct.
When's the last time you gave me that information?
I forwarded that to Al Knopf.
When did you give it to the Vehicle Review Committee, which is me?
Well, because I was told that Al Knopf is the contact person for
When
the
did you give it
township.
to the-
That's why it was forwarded to him.
When did you give it to the, well, you wrote it in your letter that you give it to the Vehicle Review Committee. When did you send that information to me?
I provided it to
I didn't ask
Mr. Knopf.
you that question, Chief.
I'm telling you what I did.
Did you send it to the Vehicle Review Committee?
My understanding is that Al Knopf was in charge of the Vehicle Review Committee.
That's not true. You know that's not true.
No, I don't.
You don't know that I'm the chairman of the Vehicle Review Committee?
No, I do not.
Okay. You have that letter that you sent to Mr. Knopf? Send
I have it.
Send it to me Monday with the rest of the stuff.
I have an email.
Send me the email then. Thank you.
Council President,
Go ahead.
how many township employees are chair of council committee?
That's 3. That would be Councilman Palumbo and Councilman
No,
Sackett.
how many
No. My
employees
question
are-
is how many township employees chair committees of the council?
How many
The answer is
public
none.
employees chair committees of the council?
I think
I think the
Al's a
answer is
member
0,
of
none.
that committee.
No, he's not.
Okay.
You were here when he did it.
He used to be.
Well, he's not,
Okay.
and it's been 2 years now.
You don't have to go that far back to look at the January 2018 minutes to see who the chair of the committees were appointed.
Well, we used to get a committee book from the clerk's office, and we haven't seen one in 2 years.
Well, you're an RMC. If you know you were
Wow.
missing it, you could have asked for it.
We have, and it's been told it's been working on.
Well, you know, the prior acting clerk, you should address that to then.
I addressed it to both.
Then you show me the email that you did of that, addressing that as well.
I don't send emails. I talk.
Anything in
Show me the
writing?
email. I doubt that conversation took place. Chief, go ahead.
We're continuing
He
the
does every
request
day.
for ammunition, 15,000. Once again, we have 4 officers in the police academy that require the ammunition to do the qualifications. We also use a lot of ammunition to maintain the proficiency of our officers that are trained in the rifle team. We've asked for an increase in the budget for community policing due to the fact that we're going to be switching from the DARE program to the LEAD program. So we'll have to acquire the new workbooks and the new materials that go with it. Also, that's what we use for the giveaways for the senior picnic. We asked for an increase in 171 to drug testing. We've increased that, asked for.
That's a
an increase-
mandatory, right?
What's that?
That's mandatory now?
Yes, we've asked for that increase because it's mandatory. Last year, we had to test 10% of our officers. Going forward, every year, we have to test 5% of our officers. So we requested an increase in that.
Is that a lottery, or is that just a selection that you pick?
That's a random drawing. All the officers' numbers are put in, and it's a random generation of their identifiers, and they have to provide a sample, and it's sent down to the State Police Lab in Newark.
Chief, is there a reason why you're asking $2,000 more for cell phones? 077.
No, it's the same. It's the same.
We're just continuing that over from the 2018 budget.
I have, you used $7,200, it seems, was the highest that you've used, and you're asking for 2,000 more. Is there a reason why?
Just to make sure that we have enough communications capability.
Has it changed since 2016?
we've increased the amount of cell phones that we have.
You have? You bought new phones since, in 16 was 7,100, 17 was 6,500. Last year, you spent 7,200. Now you're asking for 9.
We had to provide one to the new detectives.
How many of those?
We've had 3 new detectives go in.
And what happened to the phones that the other old detectives had?
They were given the option to take them because they're part of the plan. If they're assuming we basically get the phones for nothing. If they transfer the plan, they're basically paying for the phone themselves.
Okay, so we wouldn't be changing the service of the amounts, and we're getting phones for free, so why are we getting an increase of 2,000?
Just to ensure that we have the proper coverage.
But you just said, what's the proper coverage? Are you buying new phone? Well, phones are free, and you don't have any additional officers or people getting the phone, so why the $2,000? You don't know? Okay. Did you want to go into,
We've asked for an increase in the emergency services unit due to the increase in calls for the opioid crisis. We're forced to purchase additional oxygen and first aid supplies to ensure that the officers are properly equipped to respond to the emergencies. We're asking for $6,000 up from $5,000.
what line is that, Chief?
That would be 182, the emergency services unit.
And the body armor, is there any grants that go to any of that?
Correct. After we purchase the vests, we receive basically a rebate back from the state and the federal government, but we have to lay out the money initially.
So we're asking an additional $3,400 for the vest, but we get reimbursed back from the state, from the grant program?
Correct. For officers that have their vests that need to be replaced. Initial purchase for new officers, such as the 5 new officers that we just hired, we have to pay for their initial vests.
And the reimbursement just goes back into?
We don't get reimbursed for the first vest. Any time for the replacements.
Oh, okay.
Reimbursed for the replacements. We're basically stuck for the initial issue of the body armor.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions over there? Mr. Freelander?
I'm good.
No? John?
I'm good.
Mr. Palumbo?
No, I'm good, thank you, sir.
Council President, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Simon.
Chief, can you tell me what the difference is?
Microphone, Mr. Simon, if you could.
Chief, can you tell me what the difference is between account 025 and 034, vehicle maintenance and vehicle parts? Aren't parts included in the maintenance?
For the vehicle parts, that's if we have to add any additional equipment to a vehicle that we already have, whereas the maintenance parts are the replacement of, the tires, the batteries, what have you. The other line item is for, additional equipment that we might have to put into a patrol vehicle or a detective's car.
Mr. Dio?
Yeah, Chief, how many vehicles are in the police department?
Currently, let me see. We have 33 total police vehicles. We have 7 trailers. 10 of those vehicles are unmarked cars. 15
10 of the 33?
10,
Of the 33?
correct. 15 are patrol vehicles, marked patrol vehicles. Also, some of the unmarked cars are used for patrol. 5 are third-party vehicles. 1 is a school car, which we park to enhance security at the schools. and there's one car as a spare.
So you're defining all of the 33 or in addition to the 33, Chief?
No, that total is 33.
Okay, you're just,
Correct, I'm just
distinguishing
breaking down that 33.
and how many of the fleet did we get rid of out of the auction?
That I don't know, I haven't seen a report on it yet.
You know, we got cop cars?
Off the top of my head, no.
I can tell you this, though, even the ones that were really super banged up, we got more money than what you traded it in over at Buyer.
Stop.
Yeah, we did pretty good with that.
You know offhand, Peter?
I'm sorry?
You know how much we made offhand, or?
I know some of them are over the $1,000, $2,000 mark on some of them. I think the lowest one was in the 900 range, 960. But the ones that in Buyer at 3, I think you traded were 500 apiece.
Yeah, it's not that much. The town actually gets more by going to auction.
Yeah. Anything else on this? Do you have anything else additional, Chief?
No, that's pretty much it.
On this, Chief, just so we make sure, and you might have heard even before when we were up here, I just want to clarify it. You're not reducing, I mean, you're asking for 2 additional officers in addition to what you have in this budget from the 49 to 51.
Correct.
So that the discussion and conversations going around that there's demotions and furloughs and removing police officers, obviously through the budget and administration, and that's not true, right?
Correct.
Okay, and you don't recall saying anything of that nature to anybody, that we were going to remove police officers?
No, I told the FOP president, when I reviewed the Financial Review Board, that there's a possibility that there'll be
Where
reductions.
did it say that in the report?
We feel based on our findings, consideration, and reduction of staffing without sacrificing any service and needs further evaluation.
Where does it say police officer?
This could be accomplished through attrition, well, considering, Council President, it's underneath the section.
Does it say
The
police officer, though?
At the beginning of the section states, Police Department budget questions.
Right, does it say police officer, Chief? Just a simple question, yes or no?
No.
Thank you.
Let me continue.
Let me go on,
This could be
Chief.
accomplished through attrition due to retirement and reduction in support staff. Cost savings would come in the way of reduced salaries, health benefits, welfare benefits, vehicles, maintenance, clothing costs, to mention several.
Right, and you have full-time that are non-sworn employees, right? And
We have,
nowhere did it say police
4
officers?
secretaries.
Nowhere did it say police officers, as you admitted before. Thank you, Chief. Next, dispatch? Or is there another one that you want to go to first, Chief?
Now, hold on, let me get my paperwork, please. The salary and wages for 2019, requested salary and overtime, we're requesting $503,183 for regular wages, as well as $40,000 in overtime.
And how many how many dispatchers is that, Chief?
We have 7 full-time.
And in 2008, how many do we have?
2008,
I'm sorry.
2018, we had 7.
We have 7 part-time. We picked up 1 part-time.
And is the recent transfer that we had out of records into dispatch, is that the
Right.
part-timer?
No, she's a full-timer. We're requesting a part-timer, basically a per diem person to fill in whenever there's a shortage.
So the one that transferred out of records, since we had an 18-7, this person just transferred out of records now, so do we have 8 now?